9BF Rochester. FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester. An Odyssey sports station.
It's time to start the show and talk about the sports we saw. Inside jokes and takes from Danger and Battaglia. Bills and the Sabres and the Ambers. Who gave a microphone to these jerks? Gene's a big timer, a social misfit. Clueless to the title of the biggest fuskeg hits. Chuck Munchie's goons have the last say. So thanks for your time, Mr. Mayo. Danger likes his cold ones and he likes his bears. But this is Rochester, cute Francesa.
Oh, who cares?
He's critical of Sean, he's critical of Al. And of course he married Sandy, cause she's Italian. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. With Danger and Battaglia.
A very good afternoon to you as we welcome you on into the sports bar. It's Danger and Battaglia, Rochester's only local sports talk show. We're thankful for you listening along, however you may be doing so, at 95.7 FM, AM 950, the free-to-download Odyssey app. You can get us on your smart device. When you ask it to play 95.7 The Fan, you can even watch the sports bar, our YouTube channel at The Fan Rochester, our stream on Twitch at The Fan Rochester as well, alongside the very professionally dressed and Natalie-clad Gene Battaglia. I am merely Mike Danger.
You know, Danger, I know there are a lot of people that are confused today, questioning things, wondering what direction this is headed. Honestly, didn't we move off of this one time already? But, yes, it is Back to the Future. As the Buffalo Bills today brought back both Jordan Phillips and Quentin Jefferson to the 53.
I jumped that route like Rasul Douglas, pal. I knew exactly where you were going.
Pick six.
That was a pick six. I'm taking that one to the house. Well done. Yes, we have a full show for you today. Plenty of Buffalo Bills talk as well. The voice of the Buffalo Bills will be stopping by the sports bar later this afternoon, right around 4:25. We welcome Chris Brown back in.
Brownie's back in town, so we'll be talking to Chris Brown as he'll be heading to Indianapolis, of course. So we'll get his thoughts on where this Bills team is at, 7-2. Not a lot of us thought 7-2, but here we are at the halfway point, past the halfway point actually, if you're talking just number of games, and just get his thoughts on these roster moves today. Also, kind of sounding like the Bills will not have, their wide receiver, Keon Coleman. So how will that impact things today? Not much we can discern off of today's practice because it really wasn't a practice. It was just a walkthrough. So we'll get the thoughts of Chris Brown, your voice of the Buffalo Bills, coming up at 4:25.
PJ Glasser hosts Send It In on the BetQL network. He's our Odyssey Sports betting insider, and insider calls are presented by BetMGM. You can go check out all the latest lines today on the BetMGM app. And PJ stops by in about 15, 20 minutes or so. We'll get his favorite plays for this weekend's action in both college and pro football,
including Bills Colts. So he'll give us his thoughts on that. 4.5 was the last look there. The Bills were giving on the road, which, heck, you would say that's kind of a layup, but we know the Bills over the years. Heck, it's the NFL. Like, is that too much? Bills actually just won a close game. Could there be another close game that would lead you to believe, take the Colts and the points here? PJ Glasser will give us his thoughts on that and other games in the NCAA and NFL coming up at the bottom of the hour.
Yeah, there's 4 games I have circled for Saturday. There's Georgia Ole Miss, Alabama LSU, Oklahoma Missouri, Utah BYU. Those 4 games, just those 4 games alone, I'm pretty happy with the weekend, with the Saturday action in college football. And, man, as you start to hear some rumblings around the bracket, the college football bracket, and the teams that are in and the teams that, I know it's really early and there's still a lot of football left to be played, but you're starting to see now, you get a handful of data points over the course of these first 10 weeks in college football, and you have a pretty good sense of which teams could actually win a national championship in this new format. Excited to have PJ on to give us his winners for Saturday and Sunday coming up here at 3:25.
Greg writing in, Gene, you got me. High five emojis. Thank you, Greg.
Really?
Yeah.
Greg,
I expect more out of that. That
listen to the sports bar, buddy. Don't you know? we did that bit yesterday when we were talking about the trade deadline. I saw it coming all the way. Gene saw yesterday coming all the way. Greg, I can't believe you fell for that one. Well, we appreciate you listening, Greg, and you can always engage with us on X. That's Elon's Twitter, at the Fan Rochester. And our phone lines are open at 866-4326. You can pull up a stool and join us anytime this afternoon.
Yeah, so starting with the NFL, as we mentioned, we were kind of joking about, I didn't realize you could be cut, and then 10 minutes later, I guess you don't have to clear waivers or do anything like that. But indeed, third time around for Jordan Phillips. He comes back, the defensive tackle, along with Quentin Jefferson. Jefferson was also here for a minute. Just last stop would be in Cleveland. So are the Bills kind of recognizing they've got a little bit of an issue going up the middle? To me, I would have preferred promoting Eli Ankou full-time. And maybe that ends up happening in the end. Maybe you're just bringing these guys in just for a little look-see. Originally, Quentin Jefferson, if you remember, he was a fifth-round choice out of Seattle. In his time in Seattle, the thing I remember him in Seattle, getting into a fight with the fans in Jacksonville. By fight, I mean it was just some verbal sparring, but you normally don't see that. But he's bounced around Vegas, Seattle again, Jets again, Cleveland, and this again would be his second time around. So to me, at this point, he's just a guy. And Jordan Phillips, when he was at his best, he was 10 sacks, right? That was a lot of fun. It's when Rex Ryan was the defensive, it was the head coach here. So, what are we doing here? Like, you're just hoping to catch something from one of these two.
Well, yeah, you've got guys that you're familiar with, guys that you trust. Jefferson spending the 2020 season in Buffalo, 23 tackles that season, 3 sacks, a forced fumble, a fumble recovery, 16 appearances that season. And we know about Jordan Phillips. Look, what I want to know is, can you guys help in stopping the run? Phillips, as a Cowboy, ranked dead last according to Pro Football Focus in runs in stopping the run. So I'm a little bit nervous about Phillips if he gets on the field and his ability to do that, to stop the run. I love that he's back. He's a great guy. We had him on with us last year at training camp, and he's a lot of fun. He's a big personality. So if that helps the locker room, having a guy that you trust around, I want to know how these guys can perform on the field, and or whether or not we'll even see them on the field. I mean, there were guys last year. Remember Poona Ford last year, and a handful of guys that you brought in mid-season that made a play here or there.
Is that the most transient of positions? Like Poona Ford, that's a name I had forgotten about. Tim Settle. Guys that, we're really into. This is the answer. And
who was the big guy that they had? Linval Joseph last year, right?
Linval Joseph. Yeah.
If you're bringing in Phillips and Jefferson to be kind of like those guys, that's fine. They make a play or two over the course of the rest of the season. I just don't want them to be a liability out there. And when you look at how the Bills' run defense has performed in a lot of their games this season, hard to imagine that it could get worse. Maybe it could get worse. So let's see what they bring to the table if they indeed do get on the field. We talked about the injury report briefly there. Let's dive a little bit deeper into this. It was a walkthrough, but yes, Keon Coleman did not practice today. And while Sean McDermott hasn't ruled Coleman out for this week, the injury could wind up keeping him out for more than this week if he does miss time. But you had the return of Christian Benford, a full participant. Amari Cooper was limited. Reggie Gilliam, limited. The DNP going to Keon Coleman there. He did not participate in the walkthrough.
Yeah, I think you would rather have Keon Coleman closer to being 100% getting ready for Kansas City than just have him push it here perhaps against the Colts. Maybe he's not ready for Kansas City, the way kind of McDermott couched that today. Maybe it's a more than 1 week thing. So as long as you get Amari Cooper back, Danger, everything should be okay. Khalil Shakir has been exquisite. Funny how, I read that stat that his depth of target's only 2 yards. Literally, it's hey, don't blitz, or if you do, boom, I'm going to drop it out, and he'll scooch ahead for 7. He's become like the Wes Welker on this team, guys that will just 1,000 paper cuts bleed you. That's Khalil Shakir. So as long as you have those two and Dalton Kincaid, it's a Colts team that I would think you should be able to have some success against.
Yeah, not great against the pass. We'll dive into more of those matchups here throughout the course of the week here, getting ready for Sunday as the Bills travel the Colts. And actually, took a chance yesterday to look over where the Bills rank in a handful of different statistical categories. And my findings were a little surprising. I'll explain what I saw and what my overall conclusion to that is. We'll do that here later on this afternoon, right around 4 o'clock or so. We also had word today that Mike Edwards wasn't on the free agent market very long. A new team now for Edwards. The former Bills safety was released yesterday. He's going to end up with the Titans, who have a need at safety. They lost Quandre Diggs for the year with a foot injury.
It's a loser move. Honestly, you're going to Tennessee for what? It's the same money. You couldn't get on the field here.
Well, you can get on the field in Tennessee.
You're good, but you're making the same amount of money. Like, do you want to win or no? In fact, I would think, let me think. Do you get a bonus when you make the playoffs? You should do. You do. So you took a pay cut there, dude.
Yeah, well.
I mean,
I'm not upset at the guy. I mean, look, we could sit here and say that the players say they want to be a part of a winning situation, and I don't believe it. I just don't believe it. I think you're going to go where the money is or where the opportunity is. And for Mike Edwards, yeah, maybe there's less money with Tennessee, but the opportunity is one that he can take advantage of if he gets on the field.
It's not opportunity, it's ego. That's what it is. And I can't fault him. I mean, if you think that you're a star in this league and you're not getting the opportunity, but when he asked for the release, I'm like, okay, he's trying to work his way back to Kansas City, and maybe he found out there wasn't anybody else. That could have been it, too.
Sure.
Like, yeah. Okay, great. You have a job in Tennessee. Good luck to you.
Well, his time for the Bills was not very long. Mike Edwards, now a Tennessee Titan, a day after being let go by the Buffalo Bills.
I wonder, because it's been a while since there are many people that are just jumping ahead in the story. Like, take, for example, ESPN.com. They do their power rankings, Danger. What do they do in the power rankings? They also pick a topic. What game is most? And, number 1 in the power rankings, Chiefs. Number 3 in the power rankings, Bills. Only Detroit in between the two. And, of course, they're talking about that matchup on the 17th. Both Elena and Teicher, the ESPN reporters. I'm like, wow. Doesn't Kansas City play Denver this week? Don't the Bills play Indianapolis? I know that's a big game. I'm getting texts from Binkley already excited. It's like, yes, you're going to have to come out for the playoffs. I'm like, dude, okay, but what if the playoffs aren't in Kansas City? Will the Bills take care of this? So it's I'm just wondering if any of that is seeping into either locker room right now. I would be kind of surprised, actually. I'd be kind of surprised. This just feels a little bit different. Yes, the Bills always stub their toe around this time of year. This is the last chance they have to do that against Indianapolis. Can they see it through and make it 5 in a row?
Well, I almost feel like they stubbed their toe earlier this year with their performance in Baltimore. That felt like a game where they stubbed their toe, although it was against an opponent that you knew was going to play them tough.
Right.
They didn't show up, man.
They didn't they had their chance. I mean, it's, the final score of that is a little skewed there, but if you don't try that trick play, then you might be getting it closer, if not within striking distance. Regardless, like, they have been in every game since. So the Colts only 4.5. Again, this feels a little unusual here, Danger. Like, I would think just doing the blind guess there, 6 or 7 Buffalo favored in Indy, a team that, hey, Joe Flacco's going to put it up. He doesn't care what you think. And I think the ball-hawking Bills secondary could perhaps get some opportunities this week if Christian Benford's back, especially.
Yeah, well, I think it all starts up front and whether or not they can get pressure on the Colts' stationary quarterback, Joe Flacco. Sean McDermott earlier today, speaking to the media, on the game plan defensively, pressuring Joe Flacco.
I believe pressure always starts with the front four. And, that's where, to just blitz irresponsibly is in some ways irresponsible at times, right? So don't forget I came from a very blitz-oriented background, right? So all in all, though, in order to do that, you have to have the complement of a 4-man rush. And I think that's where, we want to continue to put all of our eggs in that basket to start off and say, hey, how good is our 4-man rush? And I think at times it's been really good, and I think at other times it can be better. As you know, winning the line of scrimmage is vastly important to winning in the NFL, run game or pass game in this case. So that's our base, is that 4-man rush, and everything stems from that.
You think it needs to be better overall, Sean, than what you've gotten through 9 games? You think
I think if you look at last week's game, we didn't have enough third and long, one-dimensional type situations. So that doesn't speak of the pass rush. That speaks of first and second down defense, in particular first down defense. So, and then the complement complementary piece of putting a team into a one-dimensional type situation as a team. So, those go hand in hand. And it's not just the front four. The coverage piece has to work together with it as well. So these are all areas here where we are trying to improve and become a better football team. So that process continues, and that's why we're going out to practice. But for any team to say they're satisfied at the midway point with everything they're doing, that's just not who we are.
Yeah, I love everything he said there.
Wait a second. I didn't detect any lies.
No, I love everything he said there. Everything he said there checks out, in my opinion. And I love the admission that against Miami, you didn't put your defense was not in an advantageous situation most of that game. Miami had their way because on early downs, you allowed them to gain big yardage, and you were never able to make them one-dimensional. And your defense was on its heels a bit with Tua and his quick release and their ability to run the ball on early downs. So, yeah, I would expect an improvement from that here against Indianapolis. And you have a quarterback in Joe Flacco that can do a lot of things, but he also can't do a lot of things. Take advantage of the weaknesses that he exposes himself to every time he's behind center and try to limit those big plays on early downs, those big rushing gains that we saw and got gashed against the Dolphins on early downs and really made it impossible to turn that offense one-dimensional. Maybe you have the ability to do that a little bit easier against Shane Steichen and the Colts on Sunday. Yeah,
the Dolphins had more first downs. They had more yards. They won the time of possession.
Yeah.
It was a game that, if it's not for Tyler Bass, while you're going to overtime, and then who knows, by the way, Bass named the AFC Special Teams Player of the Week today, which is kind of amusing because that's without one kick, maybe he's caught. But you go from being caught potentially to the Player of the Week.
Well, again, I would say that if something happens here in the next few weeks where Tyler Bass doesn't look right, you can't say he's got a confidence issue or it's in his head. It's something now physical, mechanical. He's not.
Oh no, I disagree. It's squarely in his head. It is 100% in his head.
But for people who would say confidence is an issue.
No, confidence is not an issue. It's in his head. Whatever the voice in his head with the mechanics or whatever it is, you could say mechanics, but the mental part of the game is what's missing here. He just showed you he's got the leg to hit from 61. Now, let's draw that up against the guy in Baltimore there, where he doesn't hit from 50 anymore. Tyler Bass can hit from 61, we learned. So, to me, I think it's squarely in his head.
Yeah, but confidence has to be at an all-time high for Tyler Bass, knowing that your entire team rallied around you after you hit that kick. You got your head coach, and everybody's emotional, and you have a moment in a game that, quite frankly, you mentioned it, statistically, the Dolphins had a better game than the Buffalo Bills. Bass kind of bails you out. You get the support of your team. I would imagine his confidence going into this game is at an all-time high, and it'll be interesting to see if it continues, if he can continue to kick at a high level in the special teams game as well for the Bills, because chances are they're going to need it here, especially down the stretch.
He's available in our fantasy league, our work league.
Really?
Yeah.
Not interested.
61-yarder, all-time high.
Not interested. No, thank you.
Although you're get rid of kickers altogether in fantasy.
Screw kickers in fantasy football. Get them out of there. Don't need them. Well, that's what I liked about the unsanctioned. You do a guillotine league. Yeah. You keep it simple. No kickers, no defense. Just worry about the players that are out there, and go with that. Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Forgive me because our alarm's going off.
Our alarm is going off. Oh, Gene's going to go turn off our alarm here, and I'll remind you that coming up here in just a few, our buddy PJ Glasser, the host of Send It In on the BetQL Network, is going to stop by. He'll give you his favorite plays from this weekend in college and pro football, and also we'll talk to the voice of the Buffalo Bills here coming up later this afternoon, right around 4:25. Chris Brown stops by the sports bar. We'll get his thoughts on the Bills up to this point. We haven't talked to Brownie since the preseason, since training camp
yeah.
with Steve Tasker as well. We're not getting robbed, are we? Did you check? The alarm is going off.
I didn't know what that was.
Usually when the alarm goes off, something is wrong.
Something is wrong. I didn't know if that was going over the air or not, but if I'm hearing it, I'm guessing maybe others were hearing
Somebody
it too.
break into the building in the middle of the show? I mean, you want to peek behind the curtain? It's just us, folks. We got this giant space all to ourselves, thousands of square footage, and a bunch of empty studios, and me and Gino talking sports from the heart of the Flower City.
That's why, like, when Greg came down the one time, he's like, I'm watching you outside the window. Like,
Yee.
you don't have to do that. I got the green light on this, Andrew. Green light to mention this from our guy, Jimmy. We have a date.
Oh.
Our November show.
Oh, for Friday Football Talk Live.
Yes, at Three Heads, Atlantic Avenue, Neighborhood of the Arts, where we're just going to sample some of their finest, kick back, enjoy, and really relax for a couple of reasons. One, it's the bye weekend. Two, it's the Friday heading into Thanksgiving.
The Thanksgiving week, yeah.
So it's not Black Friday itself. It's going to be on November 22nd. We have already guests that are going to be stopping by from the Nighthawks. Chris Trapasso, CBS Sports, planning to join us on set. So letting you know this in advance because it is one of my favorite shows of the year when we get to go out and do that right before one of our favorite holidays. So Friday, November 22nd, it is official. Three Heads Brewing, join us.
And will our regulars bring out the Santa hat for you to wear this year?
It was a cowboy Santa hat. So if you're going to bring out a cowboy Santa hat, I'm going to say, no, I'm not putting it on.
But you did wear it last year. Did you lose a bet? I can't remember what happened.
I lost. I lose bets frequently. I just should shush.
One of our regulars pointing out something that we haven't discussed yet here in the Sports Bar. We'll get to PJ Glasser here in just a second. Look, obviously, in the last 24 hours, there are a lot of people wondering what has happened. A lot of people are surprised, confused as to the direction of just the winds, the way things have gone here in the last 24 hours. The Sabres beat the Ottawa Senators 5-1 at home. Thank you, Chris, in South Central Kentucky, for setting us up with that one. But Samuelson and Yoki Haru, healthy scratches. I thought was interesting.
It's time.
Mm-hmm.
It's time. Sit
Right.
your butt down.
A little accountability there by Lindy Ruff, and the team gets the win. Bo Byram getting a couple of goals last night. That was nice to see. Paterka also with a couple. So the Sabres take care of the Sens and end their losing streak.
Amerks tonight in Cleveland. Moss Brooks will have the call 7 o'clock here.
Let's get to PJ Glasser. He is the host of Send It In on the BetQL Network. You can hear it in the free-to-download Odyssey app. You can watch it on YouTube as well. We'll get his favorite picks, his plays for this weekend in college and pro football next on The Fan.
You're listening to the Sports
Bills filling their 2 vacant roster spots, beefing up the defensive line. Coming back to Buffalo, Jordan Phillips and Quentin Jefferson. Sean McDermott on these additions.
Jordan Phillips, was released from his other team, as was Q. So who knows where that'll go, right? They haven't played a lot, either of them, with their old clubs. So we've got to see if they're in shape and fit to play, and just take it one step at a time. So we'll see where that goes.
After nailing a 61-yard field goal to essentially get the win, Tyler Bass today named the AFC Special Teams Player of the Week. Bills Colts, how do you bet it? PJ Glasser, your host of Send It In on the BetQL Network, joining us next here in the Sports Bar. Got Amerks hockey tonight. Rochester playing at Cleveland. Andrew Mossbrooks will have your call beginning at 7. Gene Battaglin, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
The beer is cold and the wings are hot. You're in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
All right, if you're looking for some action this weekend, PJ Glasser's your guy. He's the host of Send It In and the Odyssey Sports Betting Insider. PJ Glasser, Insider Calls presented by BetMGM. Go check out all the latest lines today on the BetMGM app. PJ, I want to thank you by tailing you on Saturday. South Carolina, SMU. Hey, Ohio State beat Penn State. If you built that into a parlay, you're feeling good, and we're looking forward to another weekend of football action. PJ, thanks for making time for us. How are you, bud?
Doing good, guys. Always good to be with you. Yeah, college was awesome last week. We went 5-0. South Carolina came through SMU, like you said. So hopefully we keep it rolling this week, fellas. I'm excited. Good college slate and good NFL slate as well. Should be a good weekend.
Yeah, I mean, PJ, before we get to this weekend's action, I mean, there's still a lot of people in our area that are talking about Penn State, Ohio State. Your thoughts on how that ended? And, gosh, is there a trend more obvious that we should all just kind of point to when James Franklin is playing a ranked opponent?
Guys, I don't know how you feel, but, it's tough. Is there a worse kind of spot to be in a fan base when you have a team like Penn State where it's just the same every year, right? Just how the season's going to go. The teams you're going to beat. The teams you're going to lose to. And just how the season's going to end. And that's the way it always is with Penn State. I tweeted out that I don't think there was a team that benefited more from the expansion of the college football playoff than Penn State, right? Because they are just the ultimate 9 or 10 seed every single year. They beat all the teams that they're supposed to beat, but they just can't beat the Ohio States and Oregons. And that's what's next for James Franklin, obviously. And we've been saying that for the last 5-6 years, Gene. But, I mean, it's just you watch that game against Ohio State, and it's like you're watching the same game every year. I mean, they're right there. They just can't convert those goal-to-go situations. They can't get those plays that they need to convert. And that's what's next for Penn State. Until they obviously beat one of those teams, everybody will continue to be frustrated with Franklin.
Yeah, I love it. We had one of our regulars reach out to us after that Penn State loss and made a great point, and I agree with him. James Franklin is the Mark Richt of the Big Ten. He can win you 10 games a year in and year out, multiple bowl games, just never a legit title contender. And they need to find their Kirby Smart, take him over the top. It seems like Franklin is a guy who will get you third place every year. If you're a Lions fan, you kind of have to – I think you have to kind of be prepared for that and just know that that's what you've signed up for as long as he's your head coach.
No doubt. And look, guys, I mean, it's easier said than done, right? Everybody obviously wants to find the Kirby Smart. They want to find the Dan Lanning. They want to find the Nick Saban. But there's a reason why those guys are, one of one. There's a reason they're the top of the top. So – Franklin obviously has perfected dominating the middle tier of the Big Ten. He has proven that he can build a top 5, top 10 team. He's just got to prove that he can beat those other top 5, top 10 teams. So he's certainly going to keep trying. I honestly think, guys, that Penn State just needs a difference maker at quarterback, right? McSorley, Aller, these guys are nice college players, but they're just not Heisman caliber. They're not Cam Newton, Lamar Jackson, Johnny Manziel. They need game breakers, top 5 NFL draft picks. Until Penn State gets a difference maker at quarterback, I think that's what's going to hold them back.
Yeah, we're talking to PJ Glass, your host of Send It In. Georgia as right now the number 3 team in the ranker, and like, does it even matter? I mean, if they're 3 or 2 or whatever it is, I mean, they're 7-1. They are certainly a contender. They get Ole Miss, and I'm not sure, PJ. You give us your opinion on Ole Miss. Start out hot, and then kind of stumbled there, losing to Kentucky and also LSU, and really a third loss might kind of do them in here in terms of making the playoffs here. So how do you view this game, Georgia heading to Mississippi?
Well, this is why you boys are good at what you do. I mean, this is the perfect segue. Is Ole Miss not the Penn State of the SEC?
Very good.
Is this just is Ole Miss and Georgia, is this not the same as Penn State and Ohio State? I mean, didn't we just see this game on Saturday? Again, Ole Miss, another program, like good team, good recruiting classes, kind of beat up on the middle tier. You ask them to beat a top 5 team. You ask them to beat a big boy in the SEC. They just can't do it. You know, Kiffin could never beat Saban and Bama. He lost to Georgia last year, 52-17. So that's really the handicap for me, guys. Like, Ole Miss is good enough to do it. Their defensive line's top 3, top 5 in college football. They obviously got a good offense. They got a good offensive scheme with Kiffin. Now just go out and do it. Just prove that you can. And until they do, I couldn't take them in this game, especially with the number that we're getting at 2.5, 3. I think the reason why people would like Ole Miss in this game is it's a fate of Carson Beck. He has not been good for Georgia. He's had multiple interceptions in his last 3 games. But my counter to that would be Georgia's winning all these games despite Beck turning the ball over. Could you imagine what happens if he plays games where he doesn't turn it over? And I think those games are coming. It might start Saturday. So, guys, I've always looked at Ole Miss as kind of the SEC of the Penn State, and I think this game is just what we saw on Saturday with Ohio State and Penn State. And just like we did on Saturday taking the Buckeyes, I'm going to take Georgia as well.
What do you think about Kalen DeBoer? Do you think he has any remorse for taking the Alabama job with all the pressure that comes with that job? I mean, we kind of took for granted how Nick Saban just kind of kept his composure and his cool all those years with that dynasty at Alabama. Now they go to LSU with everything to play for here. What's your lean on Alabama at the Bayou Bengals?
I don't think he has any remorse danger taking the job. I think he has a regret jumping out to a 28-0 lead on Georgia, right? That was like the worst thing that could have happened to him, because then everybody saw the flash of what Bama could have looked like. And ever since that first quarter, that first half, we haven't seen that team since. But this is why they went out and made the push for DeBoer, because he has been so good in his career in the big games. I mean, you look at his track record at Washington, what he did last year. He was 6-1 in ranked games. He obviously beat Georgia this year. They fell short against Tennessee. Guys, for me, this game's all about Jalen Milroe. Like, it seems just easy to say and kind of a cop-out, but it feels like he's been hurt the last couple weeks. Ever since the game against South Carolina, he just hasn't looked the same. If he's healthy and he looks like himself, Bama should win this game. Obviously, whenever you're talking about an LSU game at night, you're going to have to deal with one of the best environments in college football. The way I'm betting this game is Bama minus 2.5 in the first half. This is their second bye that they're coming off of, the first bye week. Again, we saw them against Georgia come out to that 28-0 lead. They had a great game plan on both sides of the ball. I expect them to have another great game plan with 2 weeks to prepare for this game. So I like Bama first half. But because they've just been playing everybody close this year, I worry about laying those 3 points with them. So Bama first half, I like against LSU.
We're talking to PJ Glasser, your host of Send It In. So we get one of these new SEC matchups here, if you will. Oklahoma, Missouri. Oklahoma 5-4 on the season. Missouri 6-2. Here's the thing that's interesting about this, and you know this, PJ. This point spread has jumped drastically in this game. This started Oklahoma as a 4-point underdog. Now I'm seeing them some spots being a 2.5-point favorite. Brady Cook, the hand injury for Missouri. He's their quarterback. Is this one you stay away from, PJ, or do you find some value with this unsettled situation?
Gene, it's getting to the point where I'm thinking about staying away, but I think anything under 3 is still a good bet on Oklahoma. This, at the beginning of the week, was a WTF game, wrong team favored, in my opinion, and now we got Oklahoma kind of as the right team favored in the game. I think both of these teams, especially with the quarterback positions, are trending in a little different direction. Oklahoma's always had a good defense the whole year. Jackson Arnold, their quarterback who started the beginning of the year for them, got benched because of his poor play. Now he's back and he's playing much better. Missouri, meanwhile, like Brady Cook, who is their QB, has kind of been hurt and he hasn't been himself. So I just think Mizzou, their offense has really struggled here the last couple games because they just don't have a healthy quarterback. Meanwhile, Oklahoma's starting to kind of get some offense. So I like Oklahoma, guys. You know, anytime in betting when you see these games where you get a road team who's unranked and they're favored against a ranked team, it's a pretty good indicator, especially with all that line movement. So I do like the Sooners, -2.5.
I think that I wanted to get your take before we shift over to the NFL. There's a game in Utah that everybody's going to be paying attention to, in BYU and Utah. And your first glance at the college football playoff bracket here, if it were to come out and be finalized, like BYU is in there. Talk a little bit about this matchup here in Utah.
It's going to be a great game, guys. Great rivalry. They call it the Holy War. It's the Y versus the U because of the logos with the BYU U, and they're undefeated. And I'm sure they feel disrespected being the number 9 overall team, being undefeated, and they got 2 ranked wins over top 25 teams this year. This is just a bet on how tough it is to go into Utah and get a win. And when you're a team like Utah and you had expectations at the beginning of the year to win the Big 12 and you were supposed to be a college football playoff team, and because of injuries and just bad play, your season's kind of unraveled on you, these are the kind of games where you try and save your season, right? Like Michigan's going to try and do the same against Ohio State at the end of the year. It's obviously been a terrible year for Michigan, but there are certain games teams have left where it's like against your rival, it's the attitude of, if we're not going to the playoff, well, we're bringing you with us kind of thing. And Bryce Eccles is such a tough environment to play in, especially at night. So Utah's offense is not good. Zach Wilson's younger brother, Isaac Wilson's had to play a lot this year because of Cam Rising's injury. So it's going to be a low-scoring, ugly game. But, guys, BYU's 8-0 this year straight up. They're 7-1 against the spread. This is a team right now that peak value in the market. It's a good time to sell high. So I'll take the Utes plus the points.
PJ Glasser, host of Send It In here on the BetQL Network. We'll give you 4 games here in the NFL. We'll save the Bills and Colts for last year. I know a game you're going to be paying attention to because, well, you're going to be there tomorrow night, PJ. I'm going to be looking for you. You ever do that, Danger? Like, hey, I know somebody at the game. I'm looking up for the cutaway. Is that PJ? They're wearing the purple helmets tomorrow night for the Ravens. PJ, here's the way I look at this. And when we had you on a couple weeks ago and we looked at that Ravens-Cleveland line and like, wait a second, Cleveland's getting 9, divisional game. No, way too many points. And sure enough, like Cleveland won outright. Here you have Cincinnati on a short week getting 6 in Baltimore. Is that too many points here for the Ravens to cover?
Yeah, it is. It is, Gene. It's too many points. I like Cincinnati plus 6.5. Guys, they're 4-5 this season, but all 5 of their losses have been decided by 1 score, so they're playing everybody tight. And this is just one of those rivalry games where it feels like the road team tends to play better in the other team's building. Whenever the game's in Cincy, Ravens tend to play well. Whenever it's in Baltimore, the Bengals tend to play well. And now that we're kind of in the middle of the season, right, and we kind of know what these teams are, and kind of desperation kicks in for some of these teams. Bengals know they got to go on a run. The Jets know they have to go on a run. The Niners know they have to go on a run. Like these teams that we thought would certainly be playoff teams in the beginning of the season, this is where like games like this, they're not going in there to just cover a spread. They're going in there to win outright. And, you know, Joe Burrow's been so good this season. 20 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. He lit up this Ravens secondary when they met about a month ago. I expect him to do the same thing. So I just think this is too many points. Ravens probably win a close one, but I'll gladly take the 6.5 with Cincinnati.
You mentioned this team and another team that needs to go on a run here if they want a chance at the postseason or at winning their division, and they meet in Tampa. 49ers at Buccaneers. Which way are you leaning here, PJ?
You know, guys, this was a game at the beginning of the week I didn't think would be on my card, but after Monday Night Football, I like San Francisco now. That that loss for Tampa, guys, was just, I mean, you had the defending champs on the ropes, on the road. You lose a game like that, emotional road loss. It's a short week. And now you got to turn around and you got to face the Niners, who are off a bye. McCaffrey's back up to practicing, so they're getting healthier. Just one of those spots. You know, San Francisco, it feels like throughout the years have kind of been a better team on the road. They've been good off a bye. And, you know, we talk about, like, the Bengals getting off the slow starts year after year, and, like, November, December is kind of when they turn it on a little bit. San Francisco's kind of the same way. Like, throughout the last couple of years, they haven't been too great September, early October, and then we start approaching Thanksgiving, and that's when the Niners kind of look like the team that we all know they've been the last 3 or 4 years. So, you know, this line opened 6.5. It's actually gone down to 5.5.
Yeah.
I disagree with the move. I would lay it with the Niners.
Yeah, a fun game in the early window. I wish this was later or maybe even prime time. The Steelers and Commanders, two teams that, PJ, were buyers at the trade deadline. Lattimore with the Commanders. You've got Mike Williams with the Steelers. I don't know if either of those guys are going to have an impact for them on a short week, but you have the Steelers getting 3 points going into Washington. How do you view this matchup?
Yeah, it's going to be kind of a great game for both teams, right? I mean, both have great records, only 2 losses, but neither kind of has that, like, great win. I know Washington won at Cincinnati at the beginning of the year. But I like the Steelers, guys, +3. You know, obviously, Jade and Washington they've been on a roll. But I just think the Steelers, the advantage that they have seeing Lamar twice a year, and obviously the similar skill set that Jaden has. I can tell you guys, as a Ravens fan, the team that Lamar struggles against the most is Pittsburgh. Yeah. It's always the team that forces the most turnovers on them, that stops them the most in the rushing game. It's just the way that their defensive line, their personnel's built, the way that Tomlin schemes them. I mean, they're just really good on defense against running quarterbacks. So I think Jaden's going to have a tough time. Again, they're coming off of a bye week as well. I love betting these teams, guys, that come off bye weeks and go on the road, right? Because when you're on a bye and you're at home, maybe like you don't get in your routine as quickly as you should. You don't lock in. Maybe you're not watching film early in the week as you would. But when you go on the road, especially for a big game like this, I kind of like how it brings everybody together and the attention to detail and the focus. I think Pittsburgh will be ready. I like we're getting the key number of 3, so I'll take the Steelers.
PJ, the game we're spending all week talking about is the Bills traveling to the Colts, looking to continue their winning ways, and the Colts looking to rebound from a disappointing effort on Sunday night in Minnesota. Right now, what I'm seeing is Bills favored by 4. What's your take on Bills at Colts?
Guys, to me, it's a real simple handicap. Are the Bills going to have a letdown? Are they going to be looking ahead to Kansas City? Because, as you know, that's the big one coming up in a couple weeks. So the Bills have been playing great football over the last 2 weeks. I went back and looked to see how the Bills have performed the week before the Chiefs, and I got to tell you, it's been impressive. And I'm sure you and a lot of your viewers will remember some of these games, but the week before Kansas City, they beat the Steelers 38-3. They beat Houston 40-0. So in these games where the Bills were big favorites, they have not let the foot off the gas. They have not been looking ahead. They have taken care of business. They do go on the road this week, face Indianapolis. You certainly like the Colts better with Flacco in there than Richardson. You got to figure either the Chiefs or the Bills this week. One of them's looking ahead to the matchup next week. One of them's going to have a letdown and play down to their competition. I think there's a better chance it probably happens to Buffalo just because I do not like Bo Nix at all on the road in Arrowhead. So I'll go with the Colts. I think Buffalo wins by a field goal, but I'll take Indy +4.
Explain to us line movement here, PJ, because we saw this, and it was only a half point, but gosh, last week when, hey, it's Buffalo favored by 6.5, and then it goes down to 6. I'm going, that was a team that Buffalo clocked back in week 3, and the Dolphins haven't looked good, and I ended up taking the Dolphins and the points, and it ended up working out okay. Similar here in the fact that this started at most places at 4.5. Now it's gone down to 4. But is that sharp money going on the Colts?
Yeah, Gene, line movement, it all depends on how early or late it is in the week and if it's a favorite or an underdog, right? So, I'll give you guys an example. Earlier today in the Monday night matchup between the Rams and the Dolphins, that line was 2.5. It's down to 1 now. So for an underdog like Miami, especially a team that probably a lot of people don't want to bet right now because since Tua come back, they haven't won. The Rams are kind of rolling. They're a little bit more of a public team. For the line to move like that on a Wednesday, that's definitely professional money. I think, Gene, right now for the Bills game, like for that Dolphins game, it maybe was a little bit of both. I think certainly that was professional money because the Bills were a very public bet. But it really it all depends. Early on in the week, if you see a favorite and the line move up for them, that could be public money. But certainly if you see an underdog attracting money earlier in the week, that's usually a good indication that the professionals like that underdog.
All right, we like winners, PJ. Tell us a little bit about Send It In and how we can get more winning in our life.
I like winners too, Danger, which is why you can check out Send It In 1 to 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time, Monday through Friday, guys. You can watch us on twitch.tv/BetQL, YouTube/Odyssey Sports. 30 minutes. It's interactive. We go rapid fire, NFL, college football. Guys, we got college basketball back. Excited to talk about that here over the upcoming week. So it's great. And, love for people to tune in every Monday through Friday, 1 to 1:30 p. Eastern Time, only 30-minute show.
Yeah, it's all in right there, the way you package it. Love it, PJ. PJ, thanks for the time, and let's do this again next week.
Always a pleasure, fellas. Appreciate you.
There he is, PJ Glasser, the host of BetQL's Send It In, an Odyssey Sports betting insider. And insider calls are presented by BetMGM. Go check out all the latest lines today on the BetMGM app.
That's an interesting question he put out. If you had to say Bills or Chiefs, which one of the two teams is more likely to stub their toe this week?
I think it's the Chiefs. I disagree with PJ. I think the Chiefs in a divisional game, and Bo Nix, you can be nervous about Bo Nix all you want, but there's also an unknown to what Sean Payton has done with Bo Nix, and I don't think Bo Nix and the Denver Broncos are the same Denver Broncos that Kansas City has beat up on relentlessly for the last few years. I think if you were to ask me that question, I still think it's the Chiefs because of the divisional matchup.
Something just looks off for Kansas City, and maybe we get to December and they're going to be playing their best football. And again, they haven't lost. I'm nitpicking, but to their standard, it just seems like many of these games they've let teams hang around that it could have gone easily. And you could say the same thing about Buffalo, I'm sure. I find it hard to believe that the Bills are coming off a game where, a lot of metrics, they were outplayed by the Dolphins. You don't think they don't know that? You don't think they're trying to clean up their run defense and shore it up a little bit? You don't think that getting back an Amari Cooper will help a little bit, much less a Christian Benford? I do like the Bills in this spot. And somebody wrote to me last night, Rick said, every time the Bills, you want. No, last time the Bills played the Colts, I said the Colts would win big time.
Yeah.
I just see this one a little differently.
Oh, yeah, he got mad because you made fun of Jeff Saturday on Twitter. You posted the picture of Jeff Saturday on PTI with the graphic that said head coach. What was the graphic? Expert head coaching.
Yeah, it was like is NFL head coaching worse? Yeah, it's like that's the slogan underneath.
You had a good caption.
Ask the expert.
Ask the expert. Jeff Saturday.
That was. I kind of ripped off you because you were like looking at this like, how dumb is that?
It's hilarious.
They have Jeff Saturday talking about the state of NFL head coaching?
You're right. It's hilarious to me.
Wow.
Well, he's got to make his ESPN money some way, I guess. Put him on PTI and ask him about coaching in the NFL. And that's not a rip on Jeff Saturday. Look, Jeff Saturday, all the respect in the world, but not a good move by the Colts, bringing him in as the interim head coach when they did. We remember what happened. We remember that tenure. It was not good. It was not good. He's a smart football guy, obviously, knows more about the game than we do, but that was not good. I respect the hell out of PJ Glasser, and his opinions are valuable. And all that said, I'm going to ignore what he said about the Buffalo Bills. I think the Bills cover. I don't think the Bills go in there. And you're right. I mean, they have to realize that they can't live dangerously like they did last week against the Miami Dolphins, that wasn't their best effort. In fact, when I looked at their statistical rankings, both offensively and defensively, in a handful of different categories, I came to a conclusion about this Buffalo Bills team, and I'll explain what I saw and why I believe what I believe when we come back after the break, Gino.
If I may, talk a little baseball. Now, I think baseball does a lot of wrong things, including the off season. They don't do it the way other sports do. You don't listen to your fan base in this regard. But, oh boy, the secret commissioner of baseball spoke today, that being Scott Boras, and have some thoughts on it.
Okay. We've also got the voice of the Buffalo Bills joining us in the 4 o'clock hour, right around 4:25. Chris Brown stops by to talk Bills and Colts. You're in the sports bar. Danger and Battaglia on the Fan Rochester.
You're listening to the Sports Bar. WPTF Rochester, the sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester. An Odyssey sports station. The Fan, Rochester. Sports update.
Bills had 2 vacancies on the roster. They filled them both today, both with defensive tackles. Coming back to Buffalo, Jordan Phillips and Quentin Jefferson. Getting ready for that Colts offense, here's linebacker Terrell Bernard.
Yeah, I think they're very efficient. Obviously with the running back, he's probably one of the best in the league. Just vision, ability to make people miss, and then obviously speed and power too. I think he has all the traits of a great running back. Quarterback, he's been around the league for a really long time, played at a high level for a really long time.
Tyler Bass named the AFC Special Teams Player of the Week. We'll talk to the voice of the Buffalo Bills, Chris Brown, later this hour here in the Sports Bar. We've got Amherst hockey tonight. Rochester looking to make it 5 in a row. The Cleveland Monsters, the opponent, Andrew Mossbrooks, with the coverage beginning at 7. Gene Battaglin, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
The Bills did announce today they're bringing in both defensive tackles, Jordan Phillips, and then this morning Quentin Jefferson, both coming back, both a reunion for the Bills.
They haven't played a lot, either of them, with their old clubs, so we've got to see if they're in shape and fit to play.
Go Bills.
Go Bills.
In a week against a Jonathan Taylor, who any given week can just completely brutalize you on the ground, that's a huge concern. I think going into this game, stopping Jonathan Taylor has to be one of the top priorities for Sean McDermott and his defense.
Mike Danger.
We love Jordan Phillips. Great dude. Am I excited about it? No.
It's Eli Anku. Eli Anku should be the guy.
I think he's earned it.
Gene Battaglia.
We are just living in a golden age. The Bills at 7-2. The last time the Bills won in Indy, 1998, the game that sparked Flutie Mania. My concern, the Bills' run defense, a little leaky there. Do you think the Bills can get this cleaned up in time to face Jonathan Taylor and the Colts?
95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
The voice of the Buffalo Bills, Chris Brown, will be stopping by the Sports Bar here in about 20 minutes, and we'll continue to preview Sunday's action in Indianapolis as the Bills add a couple of familiar names today to the roster. Quentin Jefferson, Jordan Phillips, a couple of defensive tackles now back with the Buffalo Bills.
I'm not sure how long these two guys are going to be here, though. Honestly, if you could play this clip from Sean McDermott talking about both Phillips and Jefferson, and you tell me, are they, guaranteed a spot here beyond a week or two?
Jordan Phillips, was released from his other team, as was Q. So who knows where that'll go, right? They haven't played a lot, either of them, with their old clubs. So we've got to see if they're in shape and fit to play, and just take it one step at a time. So we'll see where that goes.
They might not see the field.
I'm like, wouldn't they be, if you're on an NFL roster?
Yeah,
it's kind of hard to think you wouldn't be in shape. But.
Well, yeah, I wonder what that plan is. I wonder, you mentioned Eli Anku, and I've liked how he's looked. You've got one more opportunity to call him up, right, from the practice squad. So we'll see how it all shakes out. But at minimum, you have a couple of familiar names and faces with the Buffalo Bills on this roster now that can help in that rotation on the defensive line should you choose to make them active on game day. Again, we'll talk to Chris Brown of the Buffalo Bills Radio Network, the voice of the Buffalo Bills, stopping by the Sports Bar here in about 20 minutes. Now, Gino, I was taking a look-see over at where the Bills rank in the NFL in just a variety of different offensive and defensive categories. And when I looked at it, I was kind of startled. Statistically, the Bills are a very mid team. Statistically.
Right.
Just some of what I saw. 15th in offensive yards a game, 17th in yards per game allowed, 17th on third down conversions offensively, 21st on defensive third down stops. You get the idea here. I could rattle off an entire list, but where they're top 10, 4th in points per game, 8th in points per game allowed, that probably matters more than anything. And stats aren't everything, obviously, but given their performance here through 9 weeks of the NFL season,
9 times,
I'd say they're like the 5th or 6th best team in the NFL right now. And it doesn't mean that they can't go on a run or play their best later in the season, but the teams I would put right now in front of the Buffalo Bills.
Mike Danger power rankings.
Yes, but no. I'd still put the Lions, the Chiefs, I'd put the Ravens, and I'd put the Eagles ahead of the Bills right now, with maybe the Commanders as well. I think Commanders and Pittsburgh this weekend is really interesting, and the outcome of that, could shift my opinion on either of those teams. Bottom line with what I'm saying here is if you want to be taken seriously as a contender, you don't drop a game to the Colts on Sunday. It can't happen. You beat them, and you beat them thoroughly.
Yes, that is true. No doubt about it. We're doing the power ranking thing. The Ravens losing to the Browns. Okay, they move on back there. So
I can't shed what they looked like against the Bills earlier this season.
It's a bad matchup. There's no doubt about it. But watch what happens tomorrow night.
That'll be interesting.
Cincinnati going in there. No T. Higgins. They found something in Mike Gesicki. Again, that's the Geno, go pick this guy up if you need a tight end here.
In the spirit of it's not who you play, but when you play them, if the Bills played the Bengals this weekend, would you pick the Bills? I would not.
If the Bills played the Ravens this weekend, would I pick the Bills? I would entertain it.
I would not.
I would entertain it.
Yeah. I think that they've done some really, really good things this season. And their record, they don't have to apologize to anybody for their record or where they rank statistically in the NFL. I'm not saying they're the 15th best team in the league. Their statistics, when you look at it, they're kind of mid. They're not really exceptional at anything this year.
Well, are they in a mid-major here, just being the division that they're in?
You know where they rank first? Sacks allowed. They're not allowing sacks.
Yeah, and a lot of that is the quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
That's the hidden thing when it comes to taking sacks is, okay, what's your quarterback doing with the ball? The way Josh Allen is protecting the ball, that's the difference this year, Danger. Yes, there's been a couple interceptions, but okay, one goes off of Keon Coleman's shoulder that should have gone for 7, and Amari Cooper slips. So those things will happen, I suppose, but that's the difference between this year and last year, where you're citing all these things where they're mid, takeaway, giveaway. And we tune that out quite often because
it's so important.
Coaches talk about it so much, but it is so important. It is the vital stat.
Yeah, if you steal a possession and you can take advantage of a stolen possession, it's everything. It is protecting the football is everything. It's why you see guys get as down as they get when they turn the ball over. They know they make a stupid mistake. I think the ones that don't get upset about it are the young kids that come into the league that think they can do everything. They don't realize, no, you don't get it. You can't turn the ball over. Don't do it.
Yeah, I mean, look, Travis Kelce fumbles on Monday night, and he goes over the sideline, and he looks like he's very upset, as he should. But then, conversely, when Taron Johnson punches that ball out, and you see how fired up, that's what a defense kind of lives for.
Yeah, and Raheem Mostert was pissed off. He knows, I can't do that. You can't turn the ball over. And that is one area where the Bills do excel. In fact, I don't know if they're still first in plus-minus for takeaways in the NFL, but I know going into that game against the Dolphins that they were right up there, if not the best team in the league. So maybe that's the difference. And statistically, they can be mid, but because they've feasted on takeaways, that puts them where they are right now. And you want to talk about power rankings, I mean, most of them that I see have the Bills as a top 3 team in the NFL. I'm not ready to do that just yet.
Baseball does a terrible job, Danger, of controlling their own story in the offseason. There isn't another sport where the top agent actually calls a press conference and everybody will listen to that agent like I am dictating the terms and the timeline and everything else. It's so neat and clean, and it's exciting. Hockey fans, July 1st comes around. Yes, that's free agency. That's the same day for the NBA, too. In the NBA, you find out some of these things beforehand, but when we get to that date in March, it's always exciting when legal tampering comes into the NFL, and it's on that Monday, and all of a sudden all the news comes through, and you get a little dribs and drabs, and in no way does baseball win the news cycle because of the offseason. They've got to figure out a way to change that. With that being said, here is the quote that I don't know if you will roll your eyes or you will laugh, Danger. But Scott Boras today going on and on and on about how Juan Soto can be the next whatever, right? Mentioning that, there are teams that are interested, up to 13 teams. This is the quote. Team GMs are called on to be championship magicians. And behind every great magician is a magic wand.
A magic wand? Is that what a magic
wand?
Not
a magic wand. Like, you could put that up with him talking about whose hair was it?
Bryce Harper.
Bryce Harper's hair.
Yeah, I want to find that quote because that one's one of my favorites. I mean, look, I think the guy is great. It was at the start of free agency where he was talking about how, Bryce Harper is, certainly elite and comes with stylings of, great fashion and unbelievable hair or whatever it was. I'm going to find that quote because it's an all-timer. Yeah, Boris is he is quite the showman, right? He is quite the showman for his clients and really, really knows how to hype those guys up. You need a magic wand. Okay.
Sure.
It's going to drive me nuts. I got to find the quote. We'll have Chris Brown on with us here in a couple few. And if you're just joining us, yes, we mentioned it earlier that the Bills bringing back some familiar faces in Quentin Jefferson and also Jordan Phillips at defensive tackle.
And it doesn't sound like Keon Coleman's going to be playing this week. So.
Right. Here's Sean McDermott earlier today giving us the full injury update. Stand by. This is from Sean McDermott's time with the media earlier.
Injuries. Thank you, Sal, for getting it started.
Do you have a status on Keon Coleman?
Yeah, I do. So Keon won't be out there today. We'll see where things go, and I just, Nate communicates with me each day, and we'll just take it one day at a time and see where things take us there.
Do you view him as a day-to-day at this point versus week-to-week?
I think it could be more than just this week, but we'll see. Again, I'll know more. The evaluation is still ongoing here.
Where's Cooper at?
So Cooper will be out there today in a similar capacity to what he was last week. Benford will be back. And then Reggie Gilliam is another one. I'm not sure if you guys had that on your radar or not, but he'll be limited today. So everybody, including those I already mentioned, will practice today other than Keon. Everybody will practice today. You guys already know about Smoot being out and on IR. So I think that should give you all the updates I know at this point.
Sean, just to clarify, with Keon, are you ruling him out for the weekend or yet to be determined?
Yet to be determined, yeah. I'll update you more on Friday, John, when I'm back in front of you guys. Yeah.
Sean, anything more about the nature of Keon's injury, hand or wrist?
Just that, he's not going to be available today, and I know he wants to be available. He's a heck of a competitor, but he's not available today, and we'll see where that takes us, as I said, on Friday.
With DeJuan Smoot, did he have his surgery, and did that indicate anything about whether or not he'll be likely to return this season? I know you said it was kind of...
Yeah, I feel at this point that he'd be likely to return this season. Again, he just got out of surgery, I believe it was yesterday afternoon, so that's really my update from Nate at this point.
All right, so we get a little bit of color there from Sean McDermott on the health and status of some of the players that are injured for the Buffalo Bills. I thought it was interesting that when asked directly about Keon Coleman, is it the hand, is it the wrist? He didn't answer either of those things, and I wonder if when Keon does come back, you don't give them, like the old hockey rule, like you don't give that it's a knee injury because your opponent will go after your knee. You don't go that it's a hand injury for Keon Coleman or a wrist injury because you don't want your opponent to take advantage of that in any way, shape, or form. So he's still being a little bit coy with what we might see out of Keon Coleman moving forward.
Totally fine with that, but at least you know like what limits on. There's lower body, upper body.
Yeah.
Like the NHL's so vague. Jet fans, you might have caught a break here. Like, I was trying to think of, like, angles here, Danger, of, like, what the news last night meant for, us football fans. And I'm wondering, all right, does the president pick a fight with the NFL like he did in Once Upon a Time? I don't think so. But this is a real possibility. At the celebration last night at Mar-a-Lago was Jets owner Woody Johnson.
Of course.
Woody Johnson was once appointed by President Trump to be the ambassador to London.
Correct, to the UK.
If you are a Jet fan, bye-bye, bye, leave. Go see. Yeah.
He wants that job. And if he gets that job, your organization might actually be in better shape.
You might be Stop doing dumb things.
I found the Boris quote. We you know what we need? We need a poll. We need Peter the pollster on X to give us a poll as to which one of these Boris quotes is actually better than the other. Because it's a shame that Scott Boris has never learned how to shamelessly overhype any of his clients.
He could use a lesson or two on that, right?
On Bryce Harper, this was at the start of Bryce Harper's free agency from Scott Boris. Certainly, Harper's Bazaar has begun. It's fashionable, it's historical, it's elite, global, certainly. And certainly it has inspirations that deal with great shoes and great hair. I love that so much.
Harper's Bazaar.
I love that so much. It's like he was sitting in his doctor's waiting room, saw a copy of Harper's Bazaar, and said, "Oh, I've got an idea."
I just picture Boris sitting down in a smoking jacket giving that quote. Talking
global, certainly. It's elite. It certainly has inspirations that deal with great shoes and great hair. I don't know if I like Harper's Bazaar better than Magic Wand. I think I still like Harper's Bazaar better than Magic Wand.
I think Harper's Bazaar is the GOAT of Boris quotes, but then baiting GM say, hey, you're got to be a magician to win, and you need a magic wand. That comes in at number 2.
It's pretty good. Pretty good stuff. Everybody's going to get paid, just like Harper did. So it was going to drive me nuts if I didn't get that one. That quote is one of the best of all time.
I was thinking about Danger. We are 6-7 weeks away from our take of the year show. Can you believe that?
Well, I do have plenty of nominees.
So you have to verbalize the take. So unfortunately for Scott Boris, we don't have the audio of that, and I don't know if Magic Wand would actually qualify. It's good, but I think we have some good entries this year.
We do. We've got takes from Thor Nystrom, one of our favorites. We've got takes from Charles Barkley. Mike Francesa has a really good take from March. I can play this one.
I'm sure Rodgers is going to want to get Bacteria involved, but you know what? Bacteria is a guy who has been ravaged the last couple of years by injuries.
Surprising we haven't seen Bacteria on the offensive line.
Left tackle David Bacteria.
Yeah, David Bacteria.
That's
exactly who he wants to have come back. I can tell you that our buddy Ryan Hickey, who joined us on Monday, will not win Take of the Year for his Josh Allen take from earlier this year as well in March. But we've got lots of nominees. Tiger Woods is in the mix. Jorge Lopez is in the mix.
I don't remember Tiger Woods or Jorge Lopez.
Take of the Year nominee.
Carlos Mendoza said that he understands the emotion, but that particular action of throwing your glove into the stands was unacceptable. Looking back on it, do you regret doing that?
No, I don't regret it. I think I've been looking the worst teammate probably in the whole MLB. So, whatever happened. So, whatever they want to do, I'll be tomorrow here if they want me. Whatever they want to do. So, I'm gonna keep doing this thing. So, I'm healthy on whatever on whatever to do. I'm ready to come back tomorrow. If they want me to be here, so I'll be here.
You had such a good time this season. You forgot about the low point. And I think getting rid of that guy was actually the thing that turned the team around.
Well, I think Grimace came right after that, too, Danger.
That was end of May.
End of May.
Yeah.
What's the date on that? Do you have a date?
May 30th.
Grimace date.
When did Grimace throw out the first pitch?
June 12th.
So.
Oh, nope, that's his birthday.
Oh, Grimace's birthday is June 12th. Wow. You see what you pick up when you listen to the Sports Bar?
The more you know, yeah. It was shortly after.
Yeah. You turned things around after that guy threw his glove into the stands in frustration, saying he was playing for the worst team in Major League Baseball. We'll get to the voice of the Buffalo Bills next. Chris Brown, play-by-play. You'll hear him on the Buffalo Bills radio network here on the Fan Rochester as the Bills travel to Indianapolis. Kickoff just after 1 o'clock. We'll get his thoughts on the new additions. We'll get his thoughts on this week leading up to the Colts game and the season up to date with Chris Brown of the Buffalo Bills Radio Network next on The Fan.
Sports Update.
Bills filling their 2 vacant roster spots, beefing up the defensive line. Coming back to Buffalo are tackles Jordan Phillips and Quentin Jefferson. Head coach Sean McDermott on these additions.
Jordan Phillips, was released from his other team, as was Q. So who knows where that'll go, right? They haven't played a lot, either of them, with their old clubs. So we've got to see if they're in shape and fit to play, and just take it one step at a time. So we'll see where that goes.
Tyler Bass with the 61-yard field goal in the win over Miami. Bass today named the AFC Special Teams Player of the Week. Scheduled to be joined by the voice of the Buffalo Bills, Chris Brown, coming up next year in the Sports Bar. Got the Amerks tonight. They're looking for their 5th straight win. Rochester playing at Cleveland. Andrew Mossbrooks will have the call. Sabres in action tomorrow night, taking on the Rangers. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, the Fan Rochester.
They've raised the bar on Rochester Sports Talk. You're in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Yeah, one of the best to play the position. He's been playing it for quite some time, as we're all aware, and there's not a defense he hasn't seen already from a disguise standpoint, everything. So he's on top of his game, and we have a lot of respect for his game.
Back in the Sports Bar. It's Danger and Battaglia. Sean McDermott there talking about his opponent, a quarterback, the Colts, trotting out Joe Flacco in favor of Anthony Richardson. We welcome in the voice of the Buffalo Bills. You hear him on the call Sunday afternoon here on the Fan Rochester. Chris Brown stopping by the Sports Bar. Brownie, it's great to have you on with us again. It's been a minute since training camp since we've had you on, and I guess we could talk about the new additions. We could talk about what has gone on here in the last couple of days with injuries. But more than anything, I want to say, how do you think the season's gone so far, man? We're 9 weeks in, and the Bills sit at 7-2 in a comfortable lead in the AFC East. How are you, bud?
Yeah, doing well. 7-2 is great. It's hard to argue with. And I don't want to get people too excited, but the last 6 times they started a season 7-2 or better, they reached the AFC title game, including back in 2020. So you can chew on that for a little bit and then keep your fingers crossed.
Yeah, seriously, Chris Brown, our guest here in the Sports Bar, Chris, as fans, looking ahead, right? Kansas City in 2 weeks. Hard for me to think that the Bills in that locker room will be looking ahead here, but this is a Colts team that, certainly they've had some changes here. Your thoughts on this matchup, because it is the NFL, certainly. What do the Bills need to do here in this game, in your opinion?
Got to take care of Jonathan Taylor, first and foremost. I'm sure there's some Bills fans that still have nightmares about his 5-touchdown game a couple of years ago in Buffalo, 4 on the ground to the tune of 185 yards. So they're going to have to account for him first and foremost, hopefully make them one-dimensional offensively, and then you can let your pass rush go get Joe Flacco because you know where he's going to be. He'll be sitting right in the pocket. And then, for their offense, I think they've probably got to attack the edges in the run game because Grover Stewart and DeForest Buckner are pretty formidable in the middle of that defense. So they're both healthy now and back in the lineup. And their defense has demonstrated an ability to at least keep teams low on the scoreboard for the most part of late. I mean, all of their games this season have been one-score games. So they've done a good job of staying in it. They've just had trouble finishing games. And so I wouldn't be surprised if this one's tight early.
Voice of the Bills, Chris Brown, our guest in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia. And while the Bills didn't make a last-minute move at the trade deadline, they did bring back a couple of familiar names in Phillips and in Quentin Jefferson, that rotation on the defensive line. Chris, I'm curious as to what you think they're going to do and how they're going to deploy some of these names that we have there, because we've seen Eli Ankou here in the last couple of weeks step up and make some nice plays on that defensive line as part of that rotation as well.
Yeah, he's done all right. He's been here for a few years now, up and down from the practice squad, and has always played relatively well when called upon. I wonder if Jefferson and or Phillips will be even up this week. The only reason I say that is Phillips just came off of injured reserve in Dallas after he underwent wrist surgery, of all things. And then Quentin Jefferson has been healthy and active the last few weeks in Cleveland. So I think Coach McDermott wants to assess their level of game shape before giving them a green light and saying, hey, go give us 40 snaps or 30 snaps or whatever the case might be. So they're going to determine that through the course of the week here in practice, probably run them through a set of conditioning drills with the strength and conditioning staff to determine whether or not they'll be able to tap into them to give them snaps, knowing they're down Dwayne Carter and Dewan Smoot now.
That the one thing I thought that was a little concerning, in the win over the Dolphins, Chris, defensively first down. That was it's a lot easier when the Dolphins are setting up second and manageable there. So, do you think it was something that's fixable here, or how did what do you think happened in that matchup, Chris?
Yeah, I thought this is uncharacteristic for them, but they did not do a good job of setting the edge in the run front. Some runs got out to the outside. They turned the corner, and they were breaking them off in chunks, 10, 12, 14, 15 yards, and it left them in very manageable down and distance for most of the day. And I also thought that, tackling was not fundamentally sound. You think about the first matchup with the Dolphins in week 2, the first guy made the tackle almost every time. That was not the case in the matchup last week. A lot of arm tackles, and Miami's backs fought through those for extra yardage. So it's like Bobby Babbage, the defensive coordinator, said, it's not enough to just be in your gap. You also have to make a sound fundamental tackle. And then even if you're not in position to make a sound fundamental tackle, at least hold on until help arrives.
Voice of the Buffalo Bills, Chris Brown, our guest in the sports bar. Danger and Battaglia on the Fan. Injuries going into this game, and we had the walkthrough today, and a handful of limited participants. One guy that didn't participate, obviously, was Keon Coleman. And we didn't get anything definitive about this weekend, although it does seem like it's a significant enough injury where Coleman is in jeopardy to play against Indianapolis. What do we know, Chris?
Not much. Basically, Coach McDermott said he's not declaring him out for Sunday as of yet, but in the same breath, he also said this is an injury that could carry into next week, past this game. So usually he'll give you a designation and say, oh, it's a week-to-week injury or it's a day-to-day injury. And I think this one is probably hovering right in between those two designations, so that's why he didn't want to put a label on it. So we'll have to wait and see. I guess the best news is the 3 guys that missed the game last week are back practicing this week, and Christian Benford was a full participant. So that's an encouraging sign going forward for the defense.
Chris, if I had to list reasons why the Bills are where they are, 7-2 with this big lead in the division, and I mean, it just goes back to what we were saying at training camp. How far are the Bills going to go? Well, how far can Josh Allen take them? How can Josh raise the level of his game? And I'm just curious to get your thoughts here, because at this point, 2 interceptions, and really, okay, one bounces off of Coleman's shoulder, the other one, Cooper slips. I mean, you can't fault the other. Are we seeing the smartest football that Josh Allen has played in his career so far?
Yeah, I mean, I think his decision-making has been good. I think he's also accepted playing a little bit more within the structure of the offense, not as many off-script plays. I mean, he's still always going to make those, and you welcome them when they're needed, especially in crunch time. But I think he's done a very good job of playing more within the structure of the offense. And I was talking to Joe Brady about this last week on our pregame interview on the Bills radio network, and I asked him, hey, you got him playing within the structure. Is it taking the burden off of him, to not be Superman? And he goes, actually, he's got more responsibility in this offense than ever before. So there's even more on his plate than there has been in recent years. So the thought of that and the fact that he is playing this efficiently is pretty remarkable. So it's encouraging going forward. I'll remind everybody, though, 7-2 is great, but 4 of their next 5 games are against playoff teams from last year, including the 2 teams that played in the NFC title game.
Yeah, and when I look at the Bills statistically, both offensively and defensively, in a lot of categories, they're kind of mid-level. They're not really excelling in any. But the one area, Chris, and this is something that I'm sure you talk about a lot on the broadcast, that they are excelling at is taking the ball away and not turning the ball over. How important that is for this team to have success here in the coming weeks.
Right. I mean, if you think about it, last year when Sean McDermott took over play calling duties with the defense, they were no longer a top 5 yards against defense. They had slipped in some other categories like run defense, but they were a splash play defense with sacks and takeaways. I think they finished 4th in the league in sacks. They are trending behind in that area right now, primarily because of their first and second down defense, which you already alluded to. It hasn't put their pass rush in favorable situations to get after the opposing quarterback, not to mention the fact that some slow offensive starts have kept them from getting ahead on the scoreboard, which also allows your pass rush to eat a little bit more too. So they've got to get that rectified with better starts on offense. And then the defense has to shore up the run front a little bit more effectively. And taking it a step further, they got to get off the field a little bit better on third down.
Chris Brown, voice of the Buffalo Bills. Our pregame coverage will begin at 9 a.m., and then Chris, along with Eric Wood, Sal Capaccio, with the coverage beginning at 1 from Indy. Chris, as you know, so many of these games come down to one possession, one kick. What was that like for you? I mean, I was there in the stadium, and just it was one of those special moments.
Great call.
It was a fantastic call. Congratulations on that. But just your thoughts on that and what you hope this does for Tyler Bass moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was a healthy faction of Bills fans that were all pulling for him to kind of get out of the funk that he's been in since late last season. If a 61-yard game winner doesn't do it, I don't know what will. Also got named AFC Special Teams Player of the Week this week because people are going to remember the 61-yarder, but they might have forgotten he also kicked a 40 and a 49-yarder in a game they won by 3 points. So that's not even a game-winning kick if he doesn't hit the other two. So he's been on a good little tear here. Hopefully it continues, and hopefully whatever technique issue he had in his swing is fully rectified going forward because they're going to need him.
We've heard it a lot in the last 24 hours, not in the context of football, but we've called the race here in the sports bar. I mean, the Bills have a comfortable 4-game lead in the AFC East. And Chris, I think as they kind of move towards, I know there's still a lot of football left to be played, and other teams might have something to say about it, but if we can look ahead and project that the Bills will actually win their 5th straight AFC East title, are we not living in the golden age of the Buffalo Bills AFC East dynasty?
It's hard not to think that way, right? I actually just looked it up on ESPN Analytics earlier today. The Bills have the number one or the highest percentage of likelihood that they're going to win their division at 99.5%. It's even higher than Kansas City, who hasn't lost a football game yet, but I guess they've got some teams that are a little bit closer than the others that are in the AFC East for Buffalo. So I'm not saying it's over until it's over, but it is certainly looking awfully good here. I think the only team you have to remotely worry about are the Jets, who have a very, what's considered a pretty easy schedule the rest of the way. The Dolphins' schedule is a bear. I don't think they're going to be able to climb back into it with the teams they have left on their stretch. But the Jets, with some very easy games, might be able to close the gap ever so slightly, if the Bills stumble against some of these playoff opponents from last year.
Chris, I'm not going to put you on the spot, but I would say there's probably a really good chance you know this. But for everybody else, the last time Buffalo won a game in Indianapolis in the regular season, you have to go back to 1998, the game where Rob Johnson falls on the ball, hurts his rib, starts Flutie mania at that point. Chris, where were you in 98? Were you were at GR then, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah, I was covering the team, but I was not traveling because our sister station at the time had a beat reporter that was traveling, and they didn't want to send two people that could gather the same sound. So I was covering the team during the week, but I was not traveling at that time. So I was not at that game, but I do remember that. The point of the football forced Rob Johnson to separate some rib cartilage. I mean, it was just one thing after another with him with injuries, and that one really took the cake, and he missed quite a few weeks with that, if I remember right. But, yeah, you got to go all the way back to the time when the Colts were in the AFC East to find the last time that the Bills won there. Now, they've only gone there 6 times since then, so it's not like they played them 20 times and haven't won there. But, yeah, it's kind of a wacky stat.
What's your take on how they've handled their quarterback situation there? Did they give Richardson enough time? Is the quarterback tapping out of a game for a play that much of a taboo in a locker room where he can't save face moving forward? I mean, Joe Flacco was nice at the end of last season for Cleveland. Will he have that same kind of magic here for the Colts?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. They've got a lot of issues with the offensive side of the ball. Number one, making the change to Flacco, I think, was to avoid, a mutiny in the locker room. I mean, they're playing with a quarterback who tapped out of a game, and is only completing 44% of his passes. It's hard to win football games with that low level of efficiency, and I think Shane Steichen knew it. And even though they had been saying all along, we're playing the long game with this kid, he's got to develop, they sat him down on the bench because I think they just feel like, at least from what I've understood, all of their games, like I said, have been one-score games. They feel like they're only 4 or 5 plays away from turning some of those losses into victories, and they're 4-5 on the season. So I think that's why they've committed to Flacco, because I think they believe with a veteran quarterback, maybe we can get those 4 or 5 plays that we need. And, if we turn 2 or 3 of those games into victories, now we're on the plus side. We're ahead. Our heads are above water from the 500 mark, and maybe we can make a run at the division, which, isn't completely out of reach for them at 4-5. So I think that's what they're looking at, hoping to save face for this season and then figure out the young quarterback problem in the off season, whether he's there, whether he's moved, whether they want to continue to work with him. But yeah, they've basically blown that up for now. He's going to have to develop by watching, which in my estimation is not the way to develop a quarterback. You develop more by playing, but they put that on the back burner for now, clearly.
Chris, what kind of town is Indy? You spent a lot of time there, during the Combine on One Bills Live there. Would imagine a few of our listeners might be making the trek out of there. Is this a town you look forward to going to?
Yeah, it's a pretty good downtown area. Everything is, for the most part, centrally located. So it's a very walkable city. And, yeah, I mean, we're pretty familiar with it since we make an annual trip for the NFL Combine. To your point, we spent about a week there, covering the Combine. So, yeah, it's a good downtown area. I think Bills fans will have plenty of spots that they'll be able to hit right there in the downtown proper. So, yeah, very walkable city, which is always good for a visitor because now you're not paying for Uber rides and everything. As a matter of fact, I've heard there are so many fans going to Indy from Buffalo that one of the airlines that fly out of here added a direct flight from Indy back to Buffalo on Monday. Ooh. It's an airline that doesn't usually fly direct from Buffalo to Indy, but they're making an exception on Monday after the game because of all the Bills fans that are traveling there.
When you compare year to year to year, Chris, do you think that the support, I mean, we always know that Bills Mafia travels as well as any fan base in the NFL. But, man, that Seattle game felt different. It felt like they actually took over this vaunted, the 12s got taken over by Bills Mafia. Have they traveled better this year than you've seen them in years past?
I'm going to say not yet. I think when this team really turned the corner, in 2019, we started seeing large contingents of fans on the road. 2019 was a giant year. 2021 was really, really good. I'm not saying that this year is bad per se, but the numbers were, at least in my estimation, even more impressive in those seasons. I think it was because of the freshness and newness of the team being a true contender. I'm not saying that fans are taking it for granted, but I think it was more of a novelty again then. And I think that's why the numbers were even larger than we've seen, at least to this point. Because Seattle, at the end of the game, I would estimate 3,500, maybe 4,000 fans, kind of coming down to the bench area and getting loud. Now, I would imagine also with the game over, maybe some fans hightailed it out of there as well. So there were probably more than 4,000 Bills fans at the game. But I don't know if there were more than 9,000 fans, at Lumen Field. I will say, though, it was difficult to discern the difference between Bills blue jerseys and the old school Seahawks blue jerseys from a distance. They were kind of hard to differentiate.
Chris Brown, you'll hear him on the call, and we're also lucky to have One Bills Live. Every day you hear Brownie and Tasker beginning 1 to 3, noon on game days, on Mondays after game day. Chris, appreciate the time today, and safe travels to Indy.
All right, take care, guys. We'll catch up with you soon.
You got it. There he is, the voice of the Buffalo Bills, Chris Brown, stopping by the sports bar to share his thoughts on the team before they head to Indianapolis.
That seems, I looked it up, 8.5 hours. It's really right on the edge, right?
The drive?
The drive. I know you're one that really likes, but for me, that's kind of
I would fly that one. Yeah, I would fly that one. Indianapolis is an interesting city because it's 3 hours away from all kinds of other major cities. You're 3 hours, less than 3 hours from Cincinnati and Columbus and Chicago, and you've got all these, Cleveland. You've got all these major cities that are there within just a few just a few short hours of a drive. So
That's how I kind of view us. Like, hey, I want to go to New York. I want to go to Boston. You want to go to Philly. It's 5 any direction you look. Toronto 3.
Yeah.
It's not bad.
As we were talking to Brownie and we brought up the Seattle game, man, I'm thinking to myself, that's what I'm comparing this Colts team to. I compare this Colts team feels like AFC Seattle, like a team that has an aging quarterback, a team that has weapons offensively, a team that has a run game. But if you can shut that run game down the way the Bills did with Kenneth Walker and do the same thing to Jonathan Taylor, I don't see any way that the Bills don't blow out the Colts.
Joe Flacco to me is like end of days Drew Bledsoe. I'm just gonna stand in the pocket. I'm gonna don't GAF, stand back there, pat the ball, let it rip. Is that really good to go when you're facing a team that likes to play the safeties too high? Not necessarily. I think that in this game you might get some takeaways for Buffalo if they're doing the right stuff. And we do have Sean McDermott talking earlier. We played for you how he only likes to bring 4. I mean, if you can get the Joe Flacco with just 4 or even I think the Bills should have some success against Flacco.
This is Sean McDermott earlier.
I believe pressure always starts with the front 4. And, that's where, to just blitz irresponsibly is in some ways irresponsible at times, right? So don't forget I came from a very blitz-oriented background, right? So all in all, though, in order to do that, you have to have the complement of a 4-man rush. And I think that's where, we want to continue to put all of our eggs in that basket to start off and say, hey, how good is our 4-man rush? And I think at times it's been really good, and I think at other times it can be better. As you know, winning the line of scrimmage is vastly important to winning in the NFL, run game or pass game in this case. So that's our base, is that 4-man rush, and everything stems from that.
Do you think it needs to be better overall, Sean, than what you've gotten through 9 games? Do you think
I think if you look at last week's game, we didn't have enough third and long, one-dimensional type situations. So that doesn't speak of the pass rush. That speaks of first and second down defense, in particular first down defense. So, and then the complementary piece of putting a team into a one-dimensional type situation as a team. So, those go hand in hand. And it's not just the front 4. The coverage piece has to work together with it as well. So these are all areas here where we are trying to improve and become a better football team. So that process continues, and that's why we're going out to practice. But, for any team to say they're satisfied at the midway point with everything they're doing, that's just not who we are.
I love that on a Wednesday where we normally pick apart Sean McDermott press conferences and put him to task for telling some McDermott McLies. No lies told. That was I like that soundbite. That's a good head coach soundbite right there.
Yeah, it just tells you, hey, they're actually dialed in on this game there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's
absolutely. They're minding their P's and Q's. They're on their details, and they know from what we saw last week. They had different designs of what they wanted to do with Miami, and it wasn't supposed to come down to a 61-yard field goal by Tyler Bass. It was supposed to be one-sided. I think this weekend that could come to fruition against Indianapolis. I think they're going to be some disappointed Colt fans.
Well, the staff from PJ Glasser, like the Colts, every game's been a one-score game.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, is that going to be the whole season?
I mean, you could say it's a one-score game, but did the loss to the Vikings on Sunday night feel like a one-score game?
Certainly not.
No.
And then you're backdooring that basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it'll be interesting, and man, Brownie giving us some insight there. I now I'm locked in. Now I'm viewing this Colts team like what the Bills had to face against Seattle a couple of weeks ago. I feel like the Colts, you could say, are the AFC's Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah, and you have a locker room that everybody's kind of looking around, right? Like, what the heck is going on?
Could be a divided locker room.
Yeah, Jake Arthur is the host of Locked On Colts. He'll join us tomorrow at around this time, and I always kind of like talking to beat guys from the other team. We figure it out, and we were talking to Corbin Smith of the Seahawks a few weeks ago. He does the Locked On for the Seahawks. He's good. Like I came out of that conversation like, okay, no problem here. When we talked to Mia O'Brien with Jacksonville, I'm like, oh my gosh, they're going to blow out the Jags. Like that was my opinion when she's talking about, everything that was going on in Jacksonville.
Remember that conversation? Yeah. She was like, oh yeah, they don't really know who's starting at defense. They rotate guys all over at all positions.
We don't know who's calling the plays.
Defensive coordinator is a mess. They don't know who's calling the plays offensively. I'm like, oh, that doesn't sound very cohesive. That's a problem. Yeah, maybe we'll get that tomorrow when we talk to Jake Arthur. He is on the Locked On Colts podcast. He'll be our guest tomorrow at 4:25. Also tomorrow, 3:25, we'll get a practice report from 13 Web Sports and BuffaloPlus.com's Dan Fates. He joins us at his usual time, Thursday, 3:25.
Yeah, looking forward to that. We got happy hour on the way here where we got time for your calls, 866-4FAN, 866-4326.
You're listening to the Streaming online and in the Odyssey app at The Fan Rochester. The sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan Rochester, an Odyssey sports station. The Fan Rochester Sports Update.
It's a reunion in Buffalo. The Bills bringing back 2 defensive tackles to fill the 2 vacant roster spots, Jordan Phillips and Quentin Jefferson. Last time the Bills played the Colts 3 years ago, well, Jonathan Taylor went for 5 touchdowns. Terrell Bernard certainly is aware.
Yeah, I think they're very efficient. Obviously with the running back, he's probably one of the best in the league. Just vision, ability to make people miss, and then obviously speed and power too. I think he has all the traits of a great running back. Quarterback, he's been around the league for a really long time, played at a high level for a really long time.
Keon Coleman today did not practice. It was only a walkthrough, but doesn't sound promising that he'll play this week. Tyler Bass named the AFC Special Teams Player of the Week. We got the Amerks tonight. Rochester playing at Cleveland. Andrew Rossbergs will have your call beginning at 7. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
The Bills did announce today they're bringing in both defensive tackles, Jordan Phillips, and then this morning Quentin Jefferson, both coming back, both a reunion for the Bills.
They haven't played a lot, either of them, with their old clubs, so we've got to see if they're in shape and fit to play.
Go Bills.
Go Bills.
In a week against a Jonathan Taylor, who any given week can just completely brutalize you on the ground, that's a huge concern. I think going into this game, stopping Jonathan Taylor has to be one of the top priorities for Sean McDermott and his defense.
Mike Danger.
We love Jordan Phillips. Great dude. Am I excited about it? No.
It's Eli Anku. Eli Anku should be the guy.
I think he's earned it.
Gene Battaglia.
We are just living in a golden age. The Bills at 7-2. The last time the Bills won in Indy, 1998, the game that sparked Flutie Mania. My concern, the Bills' run defense, a little leaky there. Do you think the Bills can get this cleaned up in time to face Jonathan Taylor and the Colts?
95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan Rochester.
Hey, thanks for checking out the Sports Bar, Rochester's only local sports talk show. Alongside the dapper and professional Gene Battaglia, I am merely Mike Danger. And Gino, I know that today is a day that has a lot of people kind of sideways. They're confused. They don't really understand what happened last night. And for what it's worth, we're confused as well. We're right there with you. We have no idea how the Sabres won 5-1 against Ottawa to end their winning streak.
You said pick 6 earlier again.
Hi-oh!
Hanging curveball. That's Nestor Cortez against Freddie Freeman. Here it is, like right on the inside of the plate. Just
gonna throw that out there.
Yeah. Derek, by the way, flipping me off. Derek, I'm on camera.
Yeah, we're trying to do a show over here. We're a couple of professionals. Oh, we're a couple of professionals here, you hack. What's wrong with you? We're doing a professional show over here. It's happy hour in the Sports Bar. Playing the game where you flip each other off secretly.
I know. Now the problem is you're on camera, then, I do it, and then, somebody will screenshot it.
I think you can find a little bit worse online than a guy giving you the finger. You could probably find a lot worse online than a guy giving you the finger.
I'm not sure Odyssey would like that, Danger, but hey, times that the Buffalo Bills have gotten whooped, their butts kicked. Like, boy, you didn't think of that. Well, Baltimore, okay, that was not enjoyable, right? Last time before they really, it honestly was the Colt game.
It really was.
Like the Colt game, you go back to the first year with the Saints and everything, but the Colt game, this is Josh Allen. This is a team that should have everything ready to make a playoff appearance. And wow, and that's late November, and they just came in here and wow, dropped the hammer. Is there any fear? Now, 3 years, a lot has changed.
Timeline this out for me too, because I'm trying to remember what year was. Because I feel like that game made Jonathan Taylor a lot of money.
That was 21.
So that was 2021?
November 21st, 2021.
And what year did the Bills beat the Colts in the playoffs with Phillip Rivers? Was it the following year?
No, that's the COVID year because none of us went to it.
That was the 2020 season.
So that's the wild card round weekend. Then the Bills get the Ravens the following weekend, and then they lose with the Stephon Diggs champ. We can label these games like Diggs looking at the celebration.
Yeah, right. Okay, so they lost in the championship to the Chiefs. That was the COVID season. The following season, the Colts made the trip to Orchard Park and just throttled the Bills out of the building with 5 Jonathan Taylor touchdowns.
But on that hand, and that's the season that ends in 13 seconds. Mm-hmm. Eventually, the Bills would kind of turn it around at that point. is this Colts team, do they have that capability? I don't think they do, Danger.
There's a lot of things that have changed from that last. I know a lot of us will have that as a nightmarish memory of the Bills versus the Colts, and I know you have the stat lined up for the last time that the Bills have gone into Indianapolis to get a win, which would have been the Rob Johnson / Doug Flutie handover game, right? Like
right.
Flutie mania begins with them winning in Indianapolis in 1998.
The stadium no longer exists, the Hoosier
Jesus.
Dome. Wade Phillips, the head coach. I mean, granted, Brownie pointed this out. They only played 6 times, but still, that's a conference opponent.
The thing that, I mean, the biggest thing that I think is different from the last time they played here is the leadership. You have Shane Steichen, through his decision to bench Anthony Richardson and start Joe Flacco. The thing that we don't know about this Colts team is just how cohesive are they? Are they divided? Is that locker room split? Do you have some guys that can't stand the sight of Richardson for tapping out in the middle of a game? Or do you have guys that still support him that think that maybe he got done dirty? And I guarantee you that they're talking about that the players are talking about that amongst themselves, which can't be seen as a healthy thing when you're trying to get everybody moving in the right direction. Yeah, they're all professionals, and they all have a job to do, but I don't think everybody in that locker room is Team Flacco or Team Steichen for the move of benching Richardson and starting Flacco. Taylor is the constant. Quentin, their lineman, and I'm blanking on his name,
Nelson?
Quentin Nelson
Yeah.
is also a constant. You know, he's really good, and he's a physical guy. And if you can control that element of their offense, the run game, and you heard Bernard talk about it in your update, then I think you make them one-dimensional, and you're going to blow the Colts out of the water. But if Taylor is allowed to get going, then it could be a closer game than I think we expect.
It also is noteworthy. We're joined by PJ Glasser, and he's threading the needle here. Like, thinks the Bills will win, but not good enough to cover. Just like last week, too. Maybe it's nothing or maybe it's something, but the line has moved against the Bills in both weeks, which in a league that loves – not a league. The betting public loves offense, right? We gravitate to teams like that. Like the Ravens, for example. Hey, they're favored by 6 over Cincinnati. No, you're falling in love with the Ravens' offense too much. It's a divisional game on a short week. Take Cincinnati was PJ's advice. So why is sharp money going against the Bills? And Danger, you brought this up. If you're just looking at this analytically and you just kind of did this blindly, man. You know, when it comes to a lot of these metrics, the Bills are not top 10 in this league.
Very mid. Where they succeed and where they're killing is Josh Allen isn't getting sacked. They're number 1 in sacks allowed, and the turnover ratio. The turnover ratio has masked a lot of mediocrity on both sides of the ball for this team. They are the benefactors of getting the ball and not turning it over. We talk a lot about Josh Allen not being more careful with the ball and making good choices, and that certainly helps in your plus minus. The game changed on Sunday when Mostert fumbled the ball, when Johnson punched the ball out of Mostert's grasp, and I think you need something like that to happen every game if you're the Bills for you to have the chance to win and win big. So I like, the more I talk about it, and we'll talk tomorrow with the host of the Locked On Colts podcast. That's Jake Arthur. I want to get his take on where this team is at, because you mentioned it, Gino. Whenever we talk to these beat reporters from outside, that follow that team, teams that we're not as familiar with, whether it's Seattle or Jacksonville, we get little nuggets, little morsels, little weaknesses that we might not know. And when they share that with us, it's like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense. One thing I could say is I don't think the Buffalo Bills are going to have a repeat performance from what they had last week against Miami. When you hear Sean McDermott here for just over a minute talk about how the defense needs to get pressure on their opponent, I mean, this is like one of my favorite Sean McDermott sound bites I think we've ever had. No lies told.
No, we're not goofing on him. He's actually talking defensive football.
When you hear him say what he says here, it's like everything he's saying makes sense, and it really puts an emphasis on winning the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. This is Sean McDermott earlier.
I believe pressure always starts with the front four. And, that's where, to just blitz irresponsibly is in some ways irresponsible at times, right? So don't forget I came from a very blitz-oriented background, right? So all in all, though, in order to do that, you have to have the complement of a four-man rush. And I think that's where, we want to continue to put all of our eggs in that basket to start off and say, hey, how good is our four-man rush? And I think at times it's been really good, and I think at other times it can be better. As you know, winning the line of scrimmage is vastly important to winning in the NFL, run game or pass game in this case. So that's our base, is that four-man rush, and everything stems from that.
You think it needs to be better overall, Sean, than what you've gotten through 9 games? You think
I think if you look at last week's game, we didn't have enough third and long, one-dimensional type situations. So that doesn't speak of the pass rush. That speaks of first and second down defense, in particular first down defense. So and then the complementary piece of putting a team into a one-dimensional type situation as a team. So, those go hand in hand. And it's not just the front four. The coverage piece has to work together with it as well. So these are all areas here where we are trying to improve and become a better football team. So that process continues, and that's why we're going out to practice. But, for any team to say they're satisfied at the midway point with everything they're doing, that's just not who we are.
Gap discipline, pressure with the front four. You stop Jonathan Taylor, you handle the Colts with ease this weekend.
Easier said than done. Mm-hmm. We talked to Chris Brown like, hey, what was that? And he basically said the edge. Who's setting the edge? Well, I know one side. That's Dorian Williams. Mm-hmm. Dorian Williams, sometimes he'll fall for the eye candy, for the motion or whatever it is. And is Matt Milano getting close? Well, not yet, but you're hoping that maybe Matt Milano can get back in there before the end of the season. I think Williams is certainly a good young player, but he's not Matt Milano on this. But having Bernard in the middle of this, helping out everything, and talking about that front four danger, like Daquan Jones,
kind of quiet,
and Oliver kind of hoping for some more here,
a little bit more.
Yeah, the defensive tackle, these two signings today. Like, if anybody's excited about Jordan Phillips or Q coming back, as McDermott will talk about it, we played that soundbite during one of the sports updates where McDermott is talking about this. When I listen to this, it doesn't sound like either guy will be active coming up.
Jordan Phillips, was released from his other team, as was Q. So who knows where that'll go, right? They haven't played a lot, either of them, with their old clubs. So we've got to see if they're in shape and fit to play, and just take it one step at a time. So we'll see where that goes.
There are other concerns as the Bills hold their walkthrough practice today. We have the injury report. Everybody participating except for
Keon Coleman. Yeah.
And here's a little bit more color, if you want to call it that. I don't know. Things seem very murky around the rookie wide receiver's hand/wrist injury.
Injuries. Thank you, Sal, for getting it started.
Do you have a status on Keon Coleman?
Yeah, I do. So Keon won't be out there today. We'll see where things go, and I just, Nate communicates with me each day, and we'll just take it one day at a time and see where things take us there.
Do you view him as a day-to-day at this point versus week-to-week?
I think it could be more than just this week, but we'll see. Again, I'll know more. The evaluation is still ongoing here.
Where's Cooper at?
So Cooper will be out there today in a similar capacity to what he was last week. Benford will be back. And then Reggie Gilliam is another one. I'm not sure if you guys had that on your radar or not, but he'll be limited today. So everybody, including those I already mentioned, will practice today other than Keon. Everybody will practice today. You guys already know about Smoot being out and on IR. So I think that should give you all the updates I know at this point.
Sean, just to clarify, with Keon, are you ruling him out for the weekend or yet to be determined?
Yet to be determined, yeah. I'll update you more on Friday, John, when I'm back in front of you guys. Yeah.
Sean, anything more about the nature of Keon's injury, hand or wrist?
Just that, he's not going to be available today. And I know he wants to be available. He's a heck of a competitor. But he's not available today, and we'll see where that takes us, as I said, on Friday.
Kids, that's
DeJuan
what
Smith,
we call a
did he have the
pivot.
surgery, and did that indicate anything about whether or not he'll be likely to return this season? I know you said it was kind of...
Yeah, I feel at this point that he'd be likely to return this season. Again, he just got out of surgery, I believe it was yesterday afternoon, so that's really my update from Nate at this point.
Yeah, there's your injury update from earlier today, and head coach Sean McDermott. You're right, Gino. That was the pivot of all pivots.
That is like, is it a hand or wrist? Well, he's not going to be available today. Yeah. Answer the question.
Nope. Don't want to answer the
question.
question. Not going to answer the question. He's not available today.
That is an underrated skill. I'm not going to answer the questions. I'm just going to talk. Just kind of put you to sleep there. Just going to talk about something then.
No, and nobody dares ask it a second time for clarity.
If your kid did that, right? Like, hey, where were you? My grades are good or whatever. Like you're not falling for that. The pivot. Come on.
Yeah.
All right. So no Keon Coleman. At least, okay, maybe there is a little bit of hope, but let's figure he's not in
I don't
there.
think he's playing this weekend.
Are we? If there was ever a week where you would use Curtis Samuel, a guy who plays essentially Keon Coleman's position there in the slot, like, what is the purpose of Curtis Samuel on this roster right now if he can't contribute?
Yeah, maybe a big Amari Cooper day. Maybe a big Dalton Kincaid day ahead for the Buffalo Bills if Coleman can't go. Another just Bills-related note. After releasing Mike Edwards yesterday, this is Gene's favorite story of the day. Edwards is now with the Tennessee Titans. They lost their safety, Quandre Diggs, for the season with a foot injury, so it would appear that Edwards will get what he wanted, which is on the field.
Yeah, or in a pay cut. You're a loser. I'm sorry. Like, you couldn't get on the field here in Buffalo. Well, I want another opportunity. Well, did you think Kansas City was going to take you back? Did you think you were going to? Because last I checked, Tennessee is not in a position to make the postseason. It's not like the Bills were going to cut you or anything, dude. But now I can tell you that, hey, where the Bills are, I think it's safe to say, we called the race, we'll be cashing at least one playoff check. You won't be cashing any.
Yeah, not really a guy that fits the culture that Sean McDermott is trying to build, right? When you're a guy that can't get on the field and you're kind of vocal about it and you want to trade and you're liking posts on social media that basically lay out why you're upset. Yeah, so Mike Edwards is gone. Greener pastures, off to Tennessee.
Not greener pastures.
Well, for him.
For him, yeah, you get to play now.
He gets to get on the field. No Micah Hyde.
No. Can we put to rest this story, or
I would like to. I think that if that's something that happens, then something has gone horribly wrong. That is this year's AJ Klein. You're in case of emergency break glass situation, but I don't see it as we got to bring him in because he's an upgrade over X. I don't see where he would not play. I don't think he would get on the field unless something has gone wrong, unless there's an injury.
Well, to bring it back to the two tackles, it wouldn't surprise me, like, if we get to the end of the week and, all right, let's bring in Jordan Phillips and Quentin Jefferson. You work the guys out and you realize, okay, no, this ain't it here. And you're going to release one of them. You're going to bring up Eli Ankou. Eli Ankou, to me, has earned a spot in the 53. I like how he makes plays. And the next time you do that, well, you're going to have to keep him on the 53 or he doesn't go back to the practice squad. Or if he does go back to the practice squad, you can't call him up again. So what are we doing here?
On X at the Fan Rochester, one of our regulars, Pete, what's the difference between Tomlin replacing Fields with Wilson and Steichen replacing Richardson with Flacco? I just think there's a bigger sample size with Fields. It's not his second season in the league. He's been around, and you kind of know what he is, and you know what he isn't. He is not clutch.
Well, it's the investment. It's the number 4 overall pick. I can't point to another instance. 10 games. That's it.
6 full games as a starter.
Where else has that happened in NFL history? Now, you could point to the stats. You could say he's not ready. But this wasn't a timeout. This wasn't, hey, we're going to go with Joe. We're going to take this week by week, and we're going to see how practice goes. No. they're talking out of both sides of their mouth. It's Joe Flacco from here on out.
Correct.
And the kid, so you're losing the development time unless you just think the coaching staff may be, hey, he's never going to get it. We've got to try to win games. Are we feeling under pressure? This is what bad organizations do.
I wonder if the tap out really ruined him. If the tap out ruined his chance to ever be relevant in Indianapolis again.
Of course.
They're going to move him this offseason as soon as they can.
There are some things that you can never recover from. When I say Roberto Duran for boxing fans, you think no mas. Like that, like legitimately, like you can
Cam Newton in the Super Bowl not diving for a football.
Yeah, like this is like a Maggie and Perloff great debate topic, like things like that would make you say, what players that I don't know is tapping out, quitting.
It's always going to stick with him.
Yeah,
he's always going to have to live with that. And I guess Indianapolis would prefer that he live with it somewhere else. And with the Steelers, Pete, I think what you have in their situation between Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, and this is something we talked about in the offseason when they acquired both of these guys, low risk, high reward. I mean, there's not a massive investment for either of these guys that you brought in. In fact, you didn't really invest anything in either of these guys. So what you get out of your quarterback play is gravy. And if you get something positive, well, maybe one of these guys sticks long term, but you're not really committed to either of these guys. You've bought yourself a season where you can stay competitive after you kind of cut bait and admitted, yeah, you screwed up with Kenny Pickett. He's not very good. And that sample size wasn't a large sample size either. You had enough, though. You saw enough, and you knew he's not the dude.
Well, there was also something with Kenny Pickett. He was pissing and moaning when they signed Russell Wilson.
That's right.
So like, okay, you don't want to be here. Like a true competitor would be
you don't want to be a backup.
Yeah, no, well, I'm going to take that job. And ironically, you would have had that job had you just now you're just sitting the bench in Philadelphia.
Yeah, well, I think that's the biggest difference, Pete. There's a bigger investment with what the Colts have in Richardson versus what the Steelers have in both Fields and Wilson. And look, Russell Wilson has been a nice story since he's taken over that starting role with Pittsburgh, but you could still see a Russell Wilson looking like a bum out there. I mean, that's not out of the realm of possibility either. He looks like he has command of that offense right now, and it certainly looks more efficient than it did when Justin Fields was in there. But Russell Wilson is still Russell Wilson at this stage of his career. I think that the clock is going to strike midnight at some point for the Steelers offense as their schedule gets a lot tougher down the stretch.
They're still a playoff team, though. You see them falling to like the 8th spot? That would be a drastic fall. Well, a lot will have to do with Thursday Night Football. Oh, that's good tomorrow night.
Yeah.
That's good. Cincinnati and Baltimore. And I wish Steelers Commanders was not head-to-head against the Bills.
Yep.
That 4 o'clock window, we're going to be served up Cowboys and Eagles. That does.
If you're the Eagles, by the way, no mercy. No mercy. I'm saying if you're the Eagles, win by 30 or more. Don't let up. Absolutely send a message to the league and destroy Dallas. That's what I'm hoping I see in that late window. Not that I'm against Dallas. I'm neutral on Dallas. I really don't care.
Yeah.
I think they're a joke franchise. But if you're the Eagles and you want to set a tone and you want to let the rest of the league know that you shouldn't be slept on, absolutely obliterate a team that doesn't have their starting quarterback and looks like they're quitting on their coach. And nobody's going to talk about Nick Sirianni being Section 5 Sirianni for the rest of the season. Well, at least for a week at least.
Philly is a wild card team. Philly is a 5.
Philly can still win that division. They can still win that division. All right, we got to get to a round of shots next.
Yeah, Sabres won last night. Of course, because Dandelion went out to the game.
Just a
Poor
shocking, not the only shocking turn of events last night, but it was a shocking turn of events.
Star returning to the ice tonight. We'll set you up for the night on ice. We have some news in baseball here. We're promising in LA, not so much in Atlanta. And I don't know, like when you do hashtag Sabres, it pops up Saberhood or whatever it is. There's another person that did this for an NFL team that, this NFL team, if you could believe it, This person has millions more followers that gave this NFL team a little bit of a shout out. I don't think he intended.
Oh, all right. Well, we'll get into yeah, I know where you're going with that.
Okay,
It's
yeah.
going. We'll get to a round of shots next. Don't forget about last call as well. You can have the final say in the sports bar at 866-4326, 585-866-4FAN.
You're listening to the The Fan Rochester Sports Update.
The Bills had 2 vacant roster spots. They don't anymore. They beef up the defensive line. Coming back to Buffalo, defensive tackles Jordan Phillips and Quentin Jefferson. Although head coach Sean McDermott wants to see it a little bit more.
Jordan Phillips, was released from his other team, as was Q. So who knows where that'll go, right? They haven't played a lot, either of them, with their old clubs. So we've got to see if they're in shape and fit to play, and just take it one step at a time. So we'll see where that goes.
Tyler Bass named the AFC Special Teams Player of the Week. Bills and Colts coming up on Sunday. Amherst hockey tonight. Rochester looking to make it 5 in a row. Playing at Cleveland, Andrew Mossbrooks will have your call beginning at 7. Buffalo Sabres playing the Rangers at MSG tomorrow. Gene Battaglia in the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan Rochester.
The Sports Leader, 95.7 FM, and streaming online at thefanrochester.com and the Odyssey app. This is The Fan Rochester.
Happy Hour continues. Thanks for checking out the Sports Bar at 95.7 FM, AM 950, the free-to-download Odyssey app, and our YouTube channel at The Fan Rochester, and streaming on Twitch at The Fan Rochester as well.
Hey, the Sabres won. J.J. Paterka, Bowen Byram, both scoring twice. Tage Thompson had the other. Thank you, Sabres. Beat their former goalie in Linus Ullmark. I forgot he was up and on.
Yeah, right.
It's like, yeah.
And things aren't going well, by the way, in Boston since the Swayman-Ullmark pairing has been split.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of consternation in Boston right now as well. So, anyways, go ahead.
Yeah, it's Linus Ullmark, former Sports Bar and studio guest.
Yes.
Of the 11 games in the NHL last night, only San Jose had worse attendance danger. 12,260 showed up in Buffalo on election night, including our very own Dan Drummey, who had pretty good seats, but went home sad wearing the Sens gear.
Yeah.
Sabres play the Rangers tomorrow, MSG.
I'm going Monday. I'm excited. I haven't been to a Sabres game yet this season. I'm taking my little one. I know it's the Canadians, and my expectations are that half of the barn will be filled with red, white, and blue, and not necessarily Buffalo Bills colors.
Which is smart. It's a holiday on Monday, so they put that Monday afternoon, and hopefully it does fill up on Monday afternoon with people bringing their kids. Connor McDavid back in the lineup tonight. He's ahead of schedule. His ankle injury, originally said it was going to be 2 to 3 weeks. It kept them out a total of 9 days.
9 times.
Edmonton facing Vegas tonight. Quiet night on the ice. Only 3 games. Nashville is at Washington. Danger, the only game on TV. Detroit and Chicago play 8 p.m. on TNT.
Yes, Patrick Kane coming back to the Madhouse on Madison for the second time since leaving. And Chicago is, I wish there was more to say there than just Connor Bedard, but he's having himself a nice start to the season.
Shohei Ohtani had surgery on his non-pitching left shoulder. It was a slight dislocation, a subluxation, as they call it. The Dodgers expect Ohtani to be ready opening day. The plan is to have him back on the mound once again.
Right. That was always the plan, to get him back on the mound next season, right? This season was just going to be DHing, and you get him on the mound next season. And it's his non-pitching shoulder, so that's good news. And man, I mean, if we see Ohtani look like he looked when he was with the Angels, but with the Dodgers on a bigger stage with more people paying attention and them being the defending champs, it could be a historic season for him.
However, let me point something out. The shoulder injury Ohtani had, same injury, same sort of dislocation that Cody Bellinger had. Cody Bellinger, it was weird. He's high-fiving a teammate in the postseason. The next year, he doesn't even hit 200. Now, the difference being that it's the lead shoulder versus the back shoulder, I guess. Yeah. So for Ohtani, when he's swinging, it was actually kind of the lead shoulder, if you will. So,
okay.
So what I'm saying is it could be better for Ohtani than it was for Bellinger. The news in Atlanta, not as good. The Atlanta Braves say, their top player and their top pitcher won't be ready opening day. Ronald Acuna tore his ACL back on May 26th. Spencer Strider had Tommy John back on April 12th. Neither one expected to be ready in March.
That checks out. I mean, when you talk about the ACL, it varies from patient to patient, but I suppose if you wanted to push it to 6 months, you're probably not at 100%, not really ready to go. But if you wait, wait until you get the season going. You'll see Acuna at some point next year. And the Tommy John is usually what, like 18 months?
Yeah, usually, right. It's the 12 months is pushing it there a little bit.
So I would expect that you'll see them both, but probably not until you get closer to the middle of the season or later in the season in the case of Strider.
For the second straight year, the New York Jets have raised their season ticket prices. Deposits for the next season are due in November. On average, they're going up 6%. This for a team that is 3-5.
Well, they're going to win out, so it's worth every penny. And if you're a Jets fan, you've got to be ecstatic today. This is a big, big day for you as a Jets fan.
So Woody was in Florida for the celebration.
He was at Mar-a-Lago.
Mar-a-Lago, yeah.
Yeah, he's a part of it all. He's in the middle of it all. He's angling already. He wants that gig. Give him the gig to be the ambassador, the U.S. ambassador to the U.K. and get him away from your organization. And you might actually be good next year.
The ambassador job, and I'm watching, The Diplomat, right? And it's really good.
I'll add it to the list.
Listen, will you just take my advice? Sit down with your wife or your daughters. You'll enjoy it.
Oh, yeah.
Carrie Russell. Not a selling point?
Oh, Carrie
Yes, no?
Russell.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyhow.
I'll share that with my wife as I'm watching it. But this show is ass. But you know what's great? This hot Carrie Russell. She's smoke. I'm into it. Oh, no, I'm not supposed to say that out loud? Sorry, honey. No, you're right. We shouldn't watch this show ever again.
In sales, we call it features and benefits.
Yeah,
that would be a feature.
A feature.
Yeah, that would be a benefit. No, my point is the ambassador is usually, it's usually a comfy job where you give to a buddy. It's not like anything that's going to hinge on world peace
What do
or
you think?
anything.
You think Woody Johnson works?
You
think that guy works?
No, he's hosting dinners and glad handing.
His job is being social. His job is wearing his gold, his icy Woody necklace and that's his job. Entertaining. Nah. Let him be the diplomat. And it's great news for you if you're a Jets fan.
Well, it is, because it's all about connections. Is this how Aaron Rodgers kind of launches into that world then too, eventually?
Well, if let's see, if RFK gets a job in the cabinet, which I think a lot of people are saying he will, do you save a space for Rodgers post-retirement here in the next couple of years?
Mr. Fauci, I'm sorry. We have Mr. Rogers here. Mr. Rogers.
Your new Surgeon General, Aaron Rodgers. Why not? Why the hell not?
Hey, everybody. Hi, Dr. Nick.
There he is.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Dr. Nick.
Aaron Rodgers, your new Surgeon General in the Trump administration with the recommendation from RFK.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Dr. Nick.
If you're really upset, just try laughter. You have to appreciate the absurdity of the world, right? The New Orleans Saints, Danger, maybe on a 7-game losing streak, right? But they also fired their coach.
That's right.
Yeah, they may have something, though, that could certainly turn things around. They have something that no other team has. Do they have the backing of His Holiness himself, the Pope?
The Pontiff.
Writes the Pope, the hashtag Saints are precious pearls and are always living and relevant because they provide a fascinating commentary on the gospel. Hashtag Saints sprouted the New Orleans Saints fleur-de-lis logo.
Yep.
Was he actually talking about the New Orleans Saints? As one fan wrote, not even the Pope can save this team.
I just think that, when you look at the comments after that tweet, I mean, that's why we go to X, right? That's the entertainment. Pontiff, this is an NFL franchise that you're talking about. Nothing, the misuse of the hashtag from the people that are kind of clueless as to how it all works on social media, always entertaining. And the Saints, I'm going to stick with this one, man. The Saints could complete the NFL circle of life here over the course of the next 24 months. They could be really bad this year, reboot everything, bring in a new head coach, go out and hire Ben Johnson, pay Ben Johnson to be one of the top 5 highest paid coaches in the league, an offensive-minded guy. Or maybe Cliff Kingsbury gets another chance to be a head coach in the NFL and you see him roaming the sidelines in New Orleans. An offensive-minded guy is my point.
Yeah.
Just so that you can be bad in 2025 with no talent on the roster, and take Arch Manning out of Texas, number 1 overall, the grandson of the great Archie Manning. You want to sell hope in New Orleans? That's the way to do it.
I would think the way to do it is actually he's some Goomba here that is he's Italian. I just know that. The interim coach. Somebody help me out. The Saints interim coach is, well, keep him on as the patsy for next year. This guy is not part of the range, but you could sell it and just say, we really like the job that our guy has done. And then you sleepwalk through 2025 and they get to 2026.
Darren Rizzi. Hey! Darren, not a real Italian name. Rizzi, R-I-Z-Z. Of course, he's the interim head coach for the New Orleans Saints. 'Cause he's Italian!
Well, you're not going to give me the job full time? We need to have a talk here.
We can dump you in the Gulf. Nobody will know. You won't be missed.
So we go from the UK, we talk about the Vatican, now to Germany, Danger, where we should apologize to them for exporting Panthers and Giants coming up on Sunday morning. Bryce Young to start at quarterback after the rare win for Bryce Young. Can he make it 2 in a row?
If the Panthers win, does Brian Daboll lose his job upon returning?
It's very un-Giant-like. I'm going to say no. Should he? Yes. But you're also getting rid of the GM at that point.
Are the Panthers coach killers from here on out? If the Panthers and Bryce Young beat you
2 weeks in a row.
Yeah, beat a bad team like the Giants, and they just beat the Saints, do they take out Dable? I think the Giants are in trouble. I'll watch. What's wrong with me? I'll watch. I'll watch that game.
I'll watch because I have Malik Neighbors in fantasy.
There you go.
I love Malik Neighbors.
There you go.
I just can anybody get this guy the ball? No.
That's right.
We're still sticking with Daniel Jones. Okay, great, fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Giant fans should hate watch this. No, I'll end up watching too.
Yeah, get a cup of coffee, a little breakfast, watch Sunday morning football from Germany, and see if the Panthers can end the Giants' misery. Or Brian Daboll's misery, really. He is miserable. Like, he is unrecognizable on that sideline. He's not the Brian Daboll I remember here in Buffalo.
Because he lost all that weight?
Well, he's just so he's just so unpresidential. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's vocal, he's yelling, he's getting after his guys. He's just doing things that we used to see coaches do a lot, but I don't know that it translates with this new generation of players. The way he undresses them with his words it's a little much. It's a little much. I don't know.
It's one thing when your coordinator is collapsing on the sideline because Charles Clay can't hold on the ball.
Remember that?
But that's a coordinator. That's not a head coach.
Yep.
A head coach should not be doing that sort of stuff.
We get the last call next, 866-4FAN. If you want to pull up a stool and join us, you can have the final say in the sports bar, 585-866-4326. 4FAN. We've got a great Thursday lined up for you tomorrow in the sports bar as we get closer to kickoff Sunday afternoon at 1 o'clock between the Bills and the Colts. 13 Web Sports at BuffaloPlus.com's Dan Fates stops by as he does every Thursday at 3:25. And then joining us in the 4 o'clock hour tomorrow, the co-host of the Locked On Colts podcast. We'll learn more about Indianapolis from Jake Arthur when he stops by the sports bar.
When we have one of those conversations, I'm either feeling better or worse about the opponent here. Like I learn more and it's clarity. So where I'm kind of leaning, all right, the Bills will cover this week. I want to hear it from a Colts insider. Like, what is really going on with the quarterback situation there?
What can we expect out of Jonathan Taylor? How does Jonathan Taylor look in the Shane Steichen offense? Because it feels like, and I hate to say it because he's still a good player, but I feel like his best days are behind him. And so if that's the weapon you're trying to eliminate if you're the Bills defense, what else do the Colts have with Joe Flacco in the pocket? We'll learn from Jake Arthur when he stops by at 4:25 tomorrow afternoon here in the Fan.
We mentioned how Greg Popovich is away from the team. According to Shams Charania, there is a great level of concern surrounding Pop. Pop is 75.
But we don't know what the ailment is.
Nope.
Yeah.
Nothing.
I hate that. I don't like that at all. Hope he's all right.
Just health issue.
He's going down as one of the best of all time, right? You have to put him, where do you put him? Do you put him top 5? Top 3?
Wow. Fact that he won with different casts.
San Antonio.
In San Antonio.
Right?
I mean, it's still, like the idea, well, Phil Jackson, anybody could win with Michael Jordan. No. The fact he did it over and over again and got the most out of that. Now, you could say it didn't work as an executive with the Knicks, but to me, still Phil Jackson is at the top. But tell me who would be, a better number 2 other than Pop.
Well, the old school guys would go,
Red Auerbach back in the day.
Yeah, back in the day. Red Auerbach.
Listen, I subscribe to the Bart Winkler theory. Like, until you actually merge with the ABA, like, everything, Rochester Royals, everything else, just no.
What do you mean Rochester? What did you just say there? Rochester Royals?
Yes.
What was that?
That was our NBA team.
We had an NBA team?
Yes.
No, we didn't.
Well, I wasn't around then.
Stop making things.
This is what I'm told.
The Rochester Royals take on the Boston Celtics.
Read about it today.
Say, check out the cams on that cheerleader. We did not have an NBA team. You're lying.
At the Edgerton Sports Park. Or
there's got to be some kind of memorial or something.
You would think.
No?
I haven't found it yet.
Huh.
Went over there last week.
I don't believe it then.
No.
Not true. Fake news. If you missed any of today's show, we'll get that up and on demand for you wherever you get your podcast. Just search out the Sports Bar. And that'll include our guest appearances today. Hey, we had the voice of the Buffalo Bills on with us for the first time since training camp. That's Chris Brown, who stopped by and talked Bills Colts with us last hour. And PJ Glasser. Tail PJ if you want to make money this weekend. PJ Glasser is the host of Send It In on the BetQL Network. He gave us his favorite plays from both college and pro football. And if you've been listening every week with PJ, he's giving us winners, folks. So go ahead and tail him. Your bankroll will thank us. And as I mentioned, Dan Fates, Jake Arthur tomorrow on the show. JR Sport Brief next. Gino, have a great night.
Thanks, you too, bud.
We'll talk to you tomorrow at 3 with a brand new episode of the Sports Bar, Danger and Battaglia on the Fan Rochester. Have a good one.